this meeting of the Southampton Town Board on this 12th day of October 2021. Please rise if you're able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Well, we didn't do our moment of silence. Well, I guess we can do it sitting if you wish. Let's just take a quick moment of silence to keep in our thoughts and prayers all the brave men and women of our armed services who defend our freedoms at home and abroad each day. Let's join together in silence. Thank you. All right, so Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Schneiderman,
Present.
Councilman Lobstad,
Here.
Councilman Martell,
Here.
Councilman Bouvier,
Here.
Councilman Scavone.
Present.
All right, everybody's here. Let's get started. We are meeting via Zoom, but the public is able and welcome to participate. And we have a number of things to discuss today, including a public hearing on water quality things. So why don't we get started? Let me begin by making a motion to approve the minutes of our regular town board meeting of September 28th, 2021. I'll take a second. Second by Councilman Lobstead. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And also a motion to approve the special town board meeting minutes of October 7th, 2021.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you read the communications?
The following communications have been received in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the Village of North Haven, ZBA, from the Village of Sag Harbor, Village Harbor Committee Wetlands applications, Village of Sagaponack, a notice of adoption, and New York State liquor license 30-day advance notice to municipalities for a location on Montauk Highway in Bridgehampton. From the town fire districts, we have received public hearing notices for the 2022 proposed fire district budgets from Bridgehampton, East Quogue, Eastport, Flanders, Hampton Bays, North Sea, Riverhead, Southampton, and the West Hampton Beach fire districts. The proposed 2022 fire district budgets as well from Bridgehampton, East Quogue, Eastport, Flanders, Hampton Bays, North Sea, Riverhead, and West Hampton Beach. Letters and emails have been received regarding the following: Association of Towns Annual Project and Expenditure Report filing deadline for October 31st, 2021. Comprehensive Broadband Connectivity Study and Survey, New York State Public Service Commission. Draft scope for change of zone, concern for independent living. Early voting information from the Suffolk Board of Elections. Planning Board matter of Star Aqua Center, Southampton. Request for intersection study at Old Country and Lewis Roads in East Quogue, streetlights and dark sky legislation, and the transition of affordable housing to Community Preservation Fund. The following bid openings took place on September 30th for the preparation, an RFP for the preparation of a climate action plan, CAP, for the town of Southampton, second notice. RFP for the design competition redevelopment proposals for 20 Shinnecock Road, Hampton Bays on October 7th. The following reports were filed from the tax receiver: coastal erosion tax levies for the 2021-2022 timeframe for Bridgehampton, North Sea Beach Colony, and Sagaponack. And finally, from the town comptroller, we received the September 2021 monthly financial reports. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Sandy. All right, we have a few walk-ons I'd like to add to our agenda. There is ID 38549, which is our 19th warrant, 38563, which amends resolution number 221-755, establishing a traffic solutions task force to appoint task force members, and appoint task force members. And 38567, notice of public hearing to consider the sale of 406 Mill Road, West Hampton, New York. So I'll make a motion to add those three resolutions onto our agenda.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. So those will be taken up toward the end. All right. Let's move on then to public hearings. Now, we only have one public hearing, but there are a lot of components. I think, we've talked about this in work session as to how best to approach it. My thinking, at least as of today, is to stop after each one, if there is public comment, to allow that public comment, and then move on to the next one. If that doesn't work out, then we can change gears a little bit. But just so,
Supervisor, I think I discussed this with Janice Shearer, and they were preparing to have public hearings at the end of the 7 applications, but either way.
if we can get, it depends on how quick we can get through it, but it kind of would be nice to have that public comment as we go and not make everybody wait. So let's see how it goes. So, Madam Clerk, would you read the first public and only public hearing notice?
Public hearing number 1, to consider non-point source abatement, pollution prevention, and aquatic habitat restoration projects proposed for 2021 Community Preservation Fund, CPF, 20% water quality improvement plan funding.
All right, thank you. And who is presenting? Elisa, are you going to be presenting this? All right.
I'll introduce it and then I'll turn it over to Jackie Feinlein. Good afternoon, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, council. Today is the second hearing on 7 quality improvement projects. They are classified under the category of remediation and restoration projects. The total funding that is available under this year's grant awards is $4,512,200. And I think as part of the public hearing process on our water quality grants, Jackie Fenlon prepared a proposal summary sheet. So you can refer to that if necessary. She did a very nice job putting together a short summary of each proposal if you want to follow along during the presentations. So then with that, I'll turn it over to Jackie. Jackie, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Good evening, Mr. Supervisor and council members. We are here for 7 hearings, a little less than last time. And we will be starting with number 1 is the Sagaponic Lake nitrogen input, reducing groundwater nitrogen input. And Charles, if you could please let in, I believe it's John Halsey from the Peconic Land Trust and also Bruce Horwith, if they're in.
John is in.
So I'm here. Actually, I think Molly Graffam from Cornell's has a short, very short PowerPoint to share.
Okay.
If she can get in.
Oh, she can. He's coming now.
Great. So I'll just start us off if that's okay.
Is there anyone else?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay, so, well, I'm John Halsey, president of the Peconic Land Trust, and I just want to thank the board for its consideration. We're thrilled to be working with the residents in the Sag Pond watershed to revitalize Sag Pond. And this is, of course, Sag Ponds, where the trust has preserved a lot of land, working with landowners over the years. So I think it's just wonderful to be working on this effort as we have been really over the last year and a half. And the beauty of this whole approach is bringing private dollars to match public funds. So it's a real win-win, and a number of residents have contributed privately to support this work and prior work. And it's a great model. So with that, I'm pleased to turn things over to Molly Graffam from Cornell Cooperative Extension.
Thank you for having us here today. As John mentioned, the Trust's mission and community relationships, as well as Cornell's experience in applied research, make this an ideal collaboration at Sag Pond. We've broken the work into 4 phases. Phase 1 largely occurred during the summer of 2021, and we are well into the data analysis and report work there. Phase 2 is primarily what the CPF request will fund. The information gained during these phases will provide the data necessary to design and install a permeable reactive barrier, as well as build on the ongoing research happening at Sag Pond. The information presented here was recently shared in a presentation, which is also available on the Trust's website, and a similar plot was included in the CPF application, but this is an updated version with the most recent data. We have the unique ability to collect pore water samples and measure groundwater seepage rates using specialized equipment, and these 2 pieces of information provide the information to calculate a localized nitrogen load to the pond. And data from phase 1 provides clear evidence that the elevated groundwater nitrate concentrations are directly contributing to elevated surface water nitrogen concentrations in the pond, which is related to a host of water quality impairments. The Smith Corner Preserve, which is owned by the Trust, will be a primary focus for phase 2 work, as well as up to 3 nearby areas to ensure and increase the chances that we will determine an ideal site for a PRB. And the site characterization work will include, will be informed by the phase 1 data, and it will include installing wells, surveying, sampling the water and soil at the inland shoreline areas to determine PRB. According to the Suffolk County Subwatershed Wastewater Plan, improved septic treatment in groundwater contributing areas to Sag Pond are critical for future improvements, but they will not be sufficient to completely achieve the desired nitrogen load reductions. So alternative strategies, such as permeable reactive barriers, could provide necessary additional nitrogen reductions. And PRBs have recently been installed near impaired water bodies in Suffolk County, in Hampton Bays, and on Cape Cod. The unique thing about this treatment is that it can reduce nitrogen derived from all 3 of the major sources, which includes fertilizers, septic, and atmospheric deposition, as long as it is in a form called nitrate. And our phase 1 data indicates that nitrate is the primary form of groundwater nitrogen entering Sag Pond, so the PRB treatment will be effective. The Cpf funding request shown here was determined by summing the cost of phases 1 and 2 and dividing in half. And the Trust, as John mentioned, will provide half of the project cost as a match raised through private donations, making this a true public-private partnership. And while there are significant upfront costs due to the site characterization, design, and installation of PRBs, there are significant cost savings because the treatment requires no ongoing maintenance or external energy input. And finally, just to summarize, PRBs are a tool in the toolbox to tackle excessive nitrogen entering Sag Pond. They are complementary and can be used in addition to the other nitrogen reduction strategies ongoing, such as septic improvements, improved fertilization practices, stormwater management, bioextraction, and hydro modification. With that, we would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
All right. So let's start with board questions. Anybody have any questions for the presenters?
Yeah, I have a question. So this ask for this project, the $107,000 is, like you said, it was the average of phase 1 and phase 2, and the private donations cover the other half of the cost for phase 1 and phase 2. Are there estimated costs available for the other phases to complete the project?
So we felt that it was premature to provide a cost estimate at this point for the upcoming phases because it does depend on the site characterization. But we can certainly, as the site characterization is ongoing, can provide an update as to what the next phases will presumably cost. And we do anticipate that the performance monitoring would be considered the match in an upcoming CPF cycle. If we request funds, the performance monitoring would be secured through private donations.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? What's the anticipated cost of the actual permeable reactive barrier?
I think that was similar to the previous question, but we felt it was premature to provide an estimate at this point because it does depend on the site characterization. So we can provide a more accurate cost for the permeable reactive barrier itself when the site characterization is underway.
So, but I guess the question, and sorry if I'm repetitive, so to spend $107,000 on doing sort of the analysis, if we know we can't afford to do the project, it wouldn't make any sense. So, but you're saying that there would be private donations or funds that would cover the cost, so you wouldn't be coming back to us to ask for the money to install the permeable reactive barrier? Am I hearing that correctly?
No, I think the idea would be to come back to CPF in a subsequent CPF funding cycle for the installation costs and the monitoring and the performance monitoring costs would be covered with private donations.
Now but the construction cost you would be asking us. Have we done an analysis in terms of bang for the buck? I mean, there's the nitrogen loading it's probably largely from the farm fields, I imagine, that adjoin this, or is it more from the residential properties? It might be a lot cheaper to put all the houses on IA systems than it will be to build a permeable reactive barrier or to modify maybe some of the farming practices in that area.
So the PRBs are really beneficial because they are installed directly along the shoreline, so they provide immediate water quality relief. And the Suffolk County Subwatershed Wastewater Plan did a cost analysis, and they found that PRBs are similar in cost effectiveness to other nitrogen reduction technologies. While we can't provide an exact number for the installation costs, they are definitely a cost-effective approach, and the cost depends on the size of the barrier. So we are in that phase 2 site characterization work, we will determine the most appropriate size of the barrier. And we've also been developing more cost-effective installation methods that as part of our work at Cornell, we're looking at different ways, such as using a column approach, which is very cost-effective compared to other methods. So we're in all ways, we're trying to make them the most cost-effective as possible.
Have there been any negative impacts from PRBs yet? Determined settling of the ground or introduction of contaminants of any kind, as you have all this water pushing through this layer of essentially wood chips or sawdust or whatever it might be? Has that been thoroughly studied?
We've been measuring the PRB performance at the Hampton Bays site, which was funded through the CPF money, and we have not found any detrimental effects of the PRB. Really, the PRB is doing an excellent job of removing nitrogen at that site. PRBs do require site characterization so that we design it properly, so that it's designed properly so that it's not introducing any contaminants. So that is why it does require that upfront cost of the site characterization.
All right, I don't have any more questions. Any other board members have questions? All right, let's go to the public real quick. If anybody is speaking on this particular proposal, I guess they should click the raise hand icon.
That is correct.
So Charles, you need to let me know if there's any hands.
At the moment, I see no hands.
All right, and we will have an open period at the end too. So if somebody misses it or wants to comment later. Okay, then let's move on to the second.
Oh, Jay, did you want to hear the water quality recommendation for that?
Yes, please. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. So they did support fully funding the project. They understand that this is a characterization study, and they did just request that any reports for the site characterization be provided to CPF so that we can review them as it comes in.
Who is doing the study? Or is it competitively bid?
Actually, Peconic Land Trust might be better to answer that.
Yeah, so we contracted with Cornell to do this work.
Cornell Cooperative. will-
Cornell Cooperative Extension, yes.
So they will receive the $107,344. How was that arrived at?
We will receive it and then pay them for their work on this effort.
Right, so but ultimately they will receive that. That's the bid you got from them?
We don't do a bidding process. We selected them because of their expertise and their willingness to do this work.
And how was the number arrived at?
So I think Molly and Ron Paulson have put together a budget. And basically what we are doing is we're funding, we've already begun funding the 50% of this, and in hopes that the town will come in and provide the other half.
So I just, a site characterization, I guess, is going to tell us how much nitrogen is moving and how fast the water table is moving and whether the soils are right for this type of structure, right? I mean,
I
it's
think,
sounds like
yeah.
it's sort of engineering and hydrological at the same time.
Molly, you're probably the best to answer that question.
Yes, there's soil borings, permeability testing, hydraulic conductivity testing, water flow velocity and direction, which are all things that Cornell Cooperative Extension has experience in and is fully capable and ready to do for this project.
All right, so somewhere there's a budget that adds up to 107,344.
There was a more detailed budget provided in the application that lists the salaries, equipment rentals, everything that is required, the laboratory analytical costs. That was all included in the application, correct?
So the total budget cost, Jay, that's 214,000,
214,000.
of which we are committing to do 50%.
Okay.
And John,
Yeah, go ahead, Tommy John.
thank you. How much of that is proprietary knowledge and how much of it will be put out to the public? We certainly have a compelling governmental interest to install permeable reactive barriers, and we would like the information technology to use in other sites and locations and other applications.
Yes, Molly, from your standpoint?
Yeah, from our standpoint, the information is non-proprietary, and we would definitely share any insights and information that we get, and any of the data can be included in an existing water quality repository. So we're definitely willing to share all of that.
And that's been our intent all along, but I want to come from Cornell.
Good, I appreciate that. And I know this is site-specific studies, but it's, the information certainly is useful to other areas in this application, for this application.
Yeah, I think it's a great model to really test the technology, and certainly there are issues in Sag Pond that I think a multi-pronged approach is really in order. Both upgrades of septic systems, improvement in practices where possible, whether it's lawns or farms, and as well as recognizing that there's nitrogen coming in through the groundwater. Some of it's legacy, some of it is more recent. You have to look at the travel times to sort of figure that out, and then understanding where that water, the nitrogen rich water is entering the pond is really what this research has been about to begin with, and then looking at potential sites where PRBs could be helpful.
John, who owns the parcel?
So we own this particular parcel is owned by the trust.
Okay.
So it's a preserve that we acquired many years ago with the help of private contributions. So there's a long history here of private support of conservation and also working with the town.
And this represents only a fraction of the shoreline of Sag Pond, right?
Yeah, and so that's why they've been also looking at other sites aside from ours. Molly, I think that's correct. Several other sites that you're also looking where the nitrogen flow is high.
Yeah, the plot that I showed, I think in the first few slides, showed how comprehensive of a study it was, and we've already seen that there are definitely several potential areas, including the Smith Corner Preserve as a potential area for the PRB.
So it's fair to say that what PRBs are obviously not proprietary because they've been around a long time. And this is one method I know Cornell has been involved with for a long time, and particularly Ron and Ron Paulson and your group. What you're trying to do here is to characterize the amount of nitrate that's ending up into this particular water body at this particular place. Are you going to interpolate some of that data, or it's a combination, obviously, of runoff and what's coming from groundwater? And the sub-watershed study, I think in this particular real shallow connection. So it's good to confirm what it is that you're going to do before you do it. And I appreciate the.
And that really goes to the nature of my question, not necessarily was permeable reactive barriers proprietary, the information that is obtained from this.
Exactly.
Right.
John, I'm looking at on my thing. So some of the property looks like it's farmed up in here, but then it looks like possibly woodlands in this section.
Yeah, it's more, it's sort of, it wouldn't be woodlands. It would be more brushy, scrubby growth. It's old field that's actually, what's that?
Natural vegetation?
Natural vegetation, yes. And actually it's not so, we haven't really been actively farming this of late. So I don't know what the year of that, there may just be cover crop on there that's, trying to prevent any erosion.
So are you thinking of following the contours of the shoreline for PRB, or you have this peninsula here? It would be a lot shorter if you would go in this way, capture the farm field and sort of cut through this peninsula here. I'm just thinking in terms of cost of construction of a PRB, it would have the same impact of catching all the nitrogen flowing from here, but you wouldn't have to go that whole distance. You just sort of cut it short and leave the peninsula on the other side of the PRB. It's just a thought, but it really may come down to how deep you have to go too. So,
yeah, I mean, I think, and that's what the site characterizations, as I understand it, is all about. It's really understanding the directional flow of the groundwater, the speed, and where the highest concentrations are, so that it can have the most beneficial effect. That's at least how I understand it as a non-scientist.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, then let's move on to the next one.
I have someone that has some question.
All right, we have a hand up. Okay, go ahead.
Stephanie.
Hi. Stephanie, you have to unmute. There you go.
I just did, yeah. I just wanted to, there were some questions a little bit earlier on about the cost for the site characterization study. There are some of us on the committee who are very familiar with the cost of studies like this, and we went over the budget, the individual line items, and we found that they were all very reasonable. So we didn't have any questions about the actual cost of the study.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah, that's very helpful because I don't have that information in front of me. And, you know, it's a sizable grant of taxpayer dollars. We just want to make sure everything's accounted for and
Yeah.
everything's reasonable. All right.
That's
Thank
part of
you.
our job, so. Yep. Get it.
Thank you. No, you guys do a great job over there in that committee. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Yes, the next one is the Nugent Street Bioswale. So this is in Southampton Village, and the presenters on this should be Jesse Warren, Gary Gillespie, and I believe Rusty Schmidt, if they could be let in, please. And just so the town board is aware, we did have an original ask of $187,700, which was just recently reduced, and we got confirmation that a grant was received for 50% from Suffolk County. And that's now been uploaded to the town's website. So the new ask is for $93,850 based upon that 50% match.
Jackie, who were the names again?
It should be Jesse Warren, Gary Gillespie, and Rusty Schmidt.
Jackie, could you just say that again, how the award, the grant was changed in terms of the request?
Yeah, so originally when we received the request in the spring, the original ask was $187,700. Just recently, on July 27th of 2021, the county passed a resolution for 50% of the ask, which would reduce the total town CPF requested funding to $93,850. And that has been uploaded to the town website. If you'd like to see the resolution, I also have it for you if needed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so who is introducing this? Mayor?
Jay, if I can introduce this, and then Gary can take it from here.
Okay, go ahead, Mayor.
All right, thank you Supervisor Schneiderman and to the town board for hosting us here at the this town board meeting. This particular application is for the Nugent Street Bioswale. Now, Supervisor Schneiderman, if you remember, we actually did a quick walkthrough pre-pandemic. This is the site, the triangular site on Nugent Street, right adjacent to the Rogers Memorial Library. And we believe that this would be a perfect spot for a bioswale to help us remediate some of the road runoff coming in and other substances and nitrogen nutrients coming into Lake Agawam. I will refer the details to Gary, but this is another one of our projects to help remediate and address some of the nutrients going into Lake Agawam. So Gary, if you're here, feel free to take it. But again, wanted to thank the town board as well as Lisa and everyone else who was involved in this application.
Can everyone hear me? I'm having video problems.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So yes, we're very fortunate enough that we did get a 50% grant for this project from Suffolk County Water Quality. This is basically a bypass of a culvert that exists on Windmill Lane and Nugent Street. So we are proposing putting in a 300-foot long bioswale that will go right next to it. We have previously had 4 projects where we've picked up stormwater north of this area. So we've slowed that flow down on Windmill Lane quite considerably. And we're going to ask Rusty Schmidt to come in and weigh in on this project. But it's basically, we're going to open up the culvert. We're going to divert the water sideways into the CPF parcel on Nugent Street. And we're going to plant the bioswale there to try to treat that water. So we're basically going to use the lower third of the property as it's the most level and the grade is similar to the culvert. And that will still allow the rest of the property to be used for holiday decorations or maybe a windmill someday. So that's about it. So Rusty, could you chime in?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Every time I unmuted, somebody muted me. It's pretty funny. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak on this. I have also a screen to share with a new design and can kind of explain this a little bit better, I think. Okay, so I believe you can see my screen. What this large piece of sidewalk is actually an underground basin. It's about a foot deep. It's not very, it's one big long basin that the water falls into along the street. What we're proposing is to knock out the wall on the other side, allow it, and then putting in some diverters to collect that water and direct it out onto the lawn grass, and then creating a bioswale. We have a long list of plants. The plants are all native, deer resistant as much as we can, and a variety of color and texture, so that we get some diversity as well as aesthetics. And then at the very end, allowing that water to go back into another catch basin at the very end of the street. So we're going to try to collect it into this bioswale, slow it down, clean it up, and then divert it back into that bottom box. And then in the meantime, we're estimating nitrogen load reduction of somewhere around 10 to 11 pounds of annually of nitrogen collected in the bioswale and not allowing it to continue to go down to Lake Agawam.
Rusty, I have a question about this. This particular drain, I've seen it take what looked like a lot of water. I've noticed this drain. It's about a foot high. I've seen water going in 6 inches deep, 30 feet long. And I'm assuming it goes right to Lake Agawam, untreated too. So that amount of water that will go through the bioswale, and then what comes out in heavy rain events will go back into the drainage system. Do I understand that correctly?
You're really close. There's no way I'm going to be able to capture that much water and have it slow it down. That it's the speed and the amount of water is just too grand. So what we're really looking to do is capture by putting in diverters of 4 or 5 inches inside. So we're actually collecting the first low flow system to go out to the bioswale, allowing that excess flow to continue to go in the direction it already is. So the first part of the storm should go into the bioswale and then continue to collect water from the bioswale on low events, but on large storm events like Ida just recently will allow that to continue to go down the existing system.
Right, and I also understand that the village, and with CPF and the village efforts have really reduced the amount of stormwater that flows to this location by doing other projects along the way in this watershed area.
That is correct. And this is a series of projects that we're trying to improve the water quality from stormwater anyway, going into Lake Agawam.
Okay, thank you.
Rusty has also mentioned we might have an opportunity to work with the school system to make this an educational opportunity, just with the school system as well as the residents of the village.
So, Rusty, I have a question for you, or one of you. You'd mentioned that there's, sorry about that. You had mentioned that there's a 10-pound annually calculated reduction of nitrates. Is that, are you also considering some of the other contaminants as part of that runoff, the legacy phosphate, things like that as well?
Yes. Yep. We modeled this with the 2013 New York State DEC watershed model. And we also have 1.3 pounds from phosphorus, nearly 600 pounds from total suspended solids, and 407 billion per year fecal coliform. That one is one of those modeling techniques that I think is maybe a little overestimated, but the rest I feel very comfortable with.
No, it's pretty, I don't know what the estimated volume of water is, but that seems like a pretty good ratio. So
Right.
it's, do you have any idea what that volume is?
I do. It's in the application, but I didn't have it put right in front of me. So give me a second. I'll take a look.
Here, I was just hoping that for the public, shoot, now I lost it.
Yeah, I had every page but that one open. So give me a second.
Where did I put it? There we go. Yeah, it's actually not in the QUIP proposal sheet. I had it someplace else. Well, that's okay. We can look that up. It's an interesting project to me. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a quick question. I'm not sure who can answer this. When you have a rain event, is the dirtiest or most, contaminated water taken through culverts and bioswales in the beginning of the rain event, or is it spread out through a whole rain event?
It's usually in the first inch to inch and a half of rain is the dirtiest water. Here on Long Island, we utilize the 1.2 inch storm event, which is the dirtiest water. It's the water quality event. So think of it like when you're running your car through a car wash. When you get in there, the first thing to do is spray it down. It's getting all that the heaviest gunk off the car before they go through the rest of the car wash for polishing. It's kind of the same kind of concept. That first flush of rain is taking all the whatever might be in the curb and taking that and flushing it through the system first. And so that is accurate. That's the first part of the storm. And we are capturing the 1.2 inch rain event in the bioswale.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep.
Also, Jen Messiano is asked to be let in, or grant writer, if somebody would.
Charles, did you hear that?
Say it again.
We're looking to let Jen Messiano in.
Thank you.
She's coming.
Well, she comes in. Do we have a sense of where all the nitrogen is coming from, the nitrogen that we're removing?
Yes, it's primarily from the stormwater off of pavements, especially off of streets, is usually the dirtiest water. And the reason for that, you can think about it as they really are kind of streams that only are wet when it's raining. So everything that kind of falls on that street is being pushed through that system. So leaves and things like that during this time of year in the spring, it's that yellow pollen that has a high nitrogen load. That we see, but it's also things like candy bar wrappers and cigarette butts and anything else that might be along that roadway, or petroleum products and things like that. So it's a mix of a lot of pollutants, of heavy metals, petroleum products, nitrogen, phosphorus, and then good technical word, crud, whatever might be out on that road. So.
All right, so it's not just about nitrogen reduction. So
No. But nitrogen is our main concern about Lake Agawam.
right. So, but this project is more phytoremediation through bioswale, rain garden to pull out hydrocarbons, maybe some nitrogen from, lawn fertilizers and things like that.
A little bit, yep. Everything and so the modeling is really taking a look at what kind of surface the land is coming across. So residential yard versus agricultural land versus, in this case, urban roadways. And so the model is taking it on an average across what is typically found. So it's not, again, it's kind of a little generic, but it gives us a good way to measure apples to apples from one project to another.
So,
And this-
Rusty, you're also had mentioned that you're removing a large amount of sediment and particulate sediment that comes across it. That I would imagine a lot of that's locked up with some phosphorus as well, as that's part of your calculations.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And the sediment is coming from things like things falling off of cars. But it's also the wear and tear of the road. The surface of the road start to deteriorate over time. Sands and things blow in or fall off the lawn or sidewalks adjacent to the road. So it's all those kinds of things.
Thank you, Rusty.
And Rusty, along with Councilman Bouvier's question, there's going to be an amount of maintenance that's going to go along with this, and I'm assuming that the village is going to be taking care of that. All the crud that comes off of the road that washes in is going to need to be cleaned out.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
That's correct.
So we will put a pre-treatment system on the backside of the inlet before it gets into the bioswale, so it's as easy as possible. So we're looking at some proprietary devices like a rain guardian and things like that.
Okay.
So that's similar to what West Hampton Beach has done with its systems. It's got a pre-treatment system for runoff into Moneybog Bay. It's something similar along those lines. Have you spoken with them about this as well?
Yeah, I have, and I've also developed some things in other parts of the country before I moved here to Long Island that has some really, there's been some great advances. And one of the ones that I like to use is called a rain guardian. It's a box that captures the sediment and heavy particulate matter with a filter, and then the filter can be cleaned like your filter on your furnace. It's a replacement filter. It's a lot easier to take care of and a lot less expensive.
So the issue then becomes for departments of public works as to where to take that sediment and dispose of it correctly. Is that true?
Yes, and I let Gary explain what he does with that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, any sediment collected there will join the rest. We dewater it and then we take that up to the Brookhaven landfill for disposal.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, thank you.
And
Unless
just
it's
one point of information to follow up on the councilman's question. I was able to find the pollutant load reduction estimates. They're actually on page 12 of 42 of the PDF of the grant application. So I'll just list them off for the public's information. The total phosphorus removal is 1/3 of a pound per year. Nitrogen, 10.9 pounds a year. Total suspended solids, 598 pounds per year. And fecal coliform is 407 billion per year. And Rusty might be able to explain that metric, but that is our quantifiable goals here.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Jennifer.
Sure thing.
It sounds like a good project. It's hard even from those numbers and having a background in science. It's still hard to say, to quantify how the bang for the buck of the project, how meaningful the project is in terms of improving Lake Agawam. But I mean, it's certainly beneficial. That is no argument there. But quantifying how beneficial is not simple. Like, would we need hundreds of these things, or is one going to see a meaningful impact?
It depends. This is speaking from experience doing this a long time, I guess, it depends on the location and the size. So for instance, before I moved here from Minnesota, we did Schmidt Lake is not much different than Lake Agawam. And it was on their impaired water bodies project list from the state of Minnesota, and with a TMDL of primary phosphorus, not nitrogen, as a freshwater lake. And we put in 4 rain gardens in key locations that were pretty sizable. And we had and we captured 12% of the stormwater going into that lake, and showed an improvement to that lake within 4 years. And by year 5, we got it off of the impaired water body. So it can be done with minimal effort, but that's not normal. Usually you end up having to do many treatments far up the stream, and nitrogen's a lot harder than phosphorus. So it's because it can move and transport a lot easier than phosphorus. And so there's a lot of pieces that we'd have to work through, but absolutely it is something that we'd want to consider looking at further. And Gary can explain how he's starting to think about the village as a whole as well, not just this project.
All right. All right, well, we're gonna need to move along as well, so maybe we can go to the public to see if there's any public questions about this or comments. Charles, does anybody have any hands up?
Yes, we have a few. Bella and Chris Gobler.
And who's coming in first?
Bella is first. Start the video, Bella. Thank you. You have to unmute also.
I'm
There you
unmuted. Hi, can you hear me now?
I can hear you, Bella, yeah.
Yes, we can.
Bella is actually the dog and the computer's named after her. My name is Carla Casper. I live at 20 Dam Trail in Flanders, and I live on a little canal that's called Silverbrook Canal that's part of the Peconic watershed. So I must say I'm very pleased to see this project and others coming to fruition. I have observed over the last 6 years as we lived here, our canal become less litter prone, but a lot of nitrates. My husband is a scientist, and so we've been able to kind of keep track of what's going on over here. So I have some comments. First of all, the rain guardians really would help us between Route 24 and the canals that empty into Reef's Bay. Anything would help. Route 24 is extremely crowded now. I'm sure you've heard. We even would benefit from litter barriers. And for example, my neighbor has fish diapers out of the pond above me, just awful. So one of my questions for you is, Flanders has historically had a lot of blighted houses. There's one across from me at 33 Peconic Trail. Even though it's been deemed unsafe by the fire marshal in May, it's still there. So I'd really like to see waterfront homes have more attention on the watershed here as far as remediating what can't be developed and shouldn't be, such as that blighted home. And I'd also like to know, like what can be done for the Peconic watershed as a whole in this context?
All right, so I don't think we'll be able to answer that at the moment, because we're really just entertaining questions and comments about this one particular bioswale in Southampton Village. But I think we all certainly understand the need to do similar types of projects throughout the town. And we certainly understand the sensitivity of the Peconic River in that area in Flanders. So, I would just ask you maybe to talk with one of the liaisons for that area. And
yeah, Mr. Martell, how are you?
Been done. Maybe develop some projects for that area. So for the next round, there could be some specific projects in that area. I don't know if there are in this packet, but certainly.
Well, I think, I just want to make a note that Flanders has changed. We have no affordability at all in housing. Everything's going for $400,000 and $500,000 for little old war boxes. And you're seeing the demographic change. And we would like some attention to our watershed. The PEP wrote a plan in 2000 for this area, and every recommendation they made has not been implemented. So I'm a little frustrated. And
So-
I understand this is not the forum for that. I would love to talk to anyone who wants to talk to us.
Yeah, so we do have, we have a lot of water quality projects and spending in the Flanders Riverside area, a lot, probably more than anywhere. So
Great.
you may want to just talk to Councilman Bouvier or Martel, the last round, because we're trying to do a whole sewer up in that area, and we're spending quite a bit of putting those pieces together. We've done a lot of preservation along the waterfront there as well. So
we would like to see more of that, and we would like to help. My husband is a scientist. His family's lived in this area for 150 years, and he has a fisheries background. So
perhaps we can go.
there
over
are people in the community who really want to help. And, I've taken up enough of your time, but I would like to see a little more attention to the area.
Okay, so let's first
That's
make
good.
sure you find out though all the things we are doing there. And
I would just jump in. If you could reach out to my office, this is Councilman Bouvier. I work with the Peconic Estuary Program, and just by sheer coincidence, it was a topic of conversation with PEP today. We had a long management meeting and policy meeting with PEP. They've restructured. They have a new host with Stony Brook now, and their focus is on the Peconic watershed, obviously. And I can put you in touch with those folks as well, and our CPF office. They can help you develop a project, and there are numerous other projects that we won't go into today within the canals and other things that are ongoing that a lot of people probably aren't aware of. But I'm happy to bring you up to speed with that and put you in touch with the right folks at PEP, and you can help develop a proposal that you could then bring to CPF, and if it qualifies under the review of the Water Quality Board, they can help that out. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah, sir, with all due respect, I've been talking to them since the day I landed here, and we've done a lot of talking, and there's been a lot of studies. The community wants to see results.
Okay. In our last, Councilman Scavone, in our last round of this, we heard a proposal to put over $2 million into the sewer district. That's just a start. And, we certainly can talk more. And we appreciate you coming on and saying these,
Yeah, I mean, our community board has been very interactive with you guys. We have great relationships. Everyone in the town's been very, very professional, but we need to see things getting done.
So, and we can have this conversation, Carla, at another time, but just a couple things. The county just spent $500,000 on building mitigation into the roundabout there to address storm waters and to attenuate those storm runoffs. We just gave a major grant for the fish ladders for I guess it's the Manhattan that spawn up in that area in the Peconic River.
The Woodhull Dam.
The Woodhull Dam. I mean, I think that if you're willing to sit down, you will be pleasantly surprised at how much money we are spending on water quality projects in that area.
Okay.
I think it's not that we
reserve judgment to see the results.
Yeah, it's not that we can't do more. We can always do more, but I think if you had the list in front of you of all the things we've done, I think you might go, okay, they are doing quite a bit. There are things happening here. So, but
that's encouraging, sir. And I've taken up enough of your time. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Okay. All right. So let's, I think Dr. Gobler was on as well.
Yeah, I'll just make a brief comment on this project, and that it's fully consistent with, as I'm sure you're all aware of, the harmful algal bloom action plan that was put together for the village and for Lake Agawam, that was signed on by the DEC, the town trustees, the village, the Lake Agawam Conservancy. This project falls, you could pull it right out of that management plan, and it's coming right from that. So I just, chiming in to endorse the project and say that by promoting this project, you're actually putting that action plan into action. So just a vote of approval and confidence in this project.
Thank you, Dr. Goldberg.
You're welcome.
All right. Anyone else, Charles, who wanted to be heard on this, the bioswale in the village?
I see no other hands.
All right. All right. Thank you. Then why don't we move on then to the next project? I guess I'll turn it back over. Is it Jackie who's going to introduce it?
Yes, thank you. So the next project is also Village of Southampton project for Public Works. This is Old Town Pond Constructed Treatment Wetland. And presenting today would be Mayor Jesse Warren, as well as Kelly Coulon of Rowe Engineering. Sorry if I did not say the name properly.
All right, Mayor, do you want to introduce this?
Thank you again. And we appreciate everybody's attention on the bioswale. We think it's a great project. We like to see attention even from the Flanders area. This particular project is in regards to a natural treatment system, or otherwise known as a constructed wetlands. And we have Rowe engineers with us. The village has undertaken a groundwater study and a sediment study as well on Old Town Pond, which is the other major freshwater body in the village of Southampton. But I wanted to say that we are particularly excited about this. I don't know the extent to which this technology has been used in the town of Southampton before. It's a relatively novel technology that can significantly remove the nitrogen levels in the groundwater and the surface water. We've identified a village piece of land that we can use for this project. But I will turn this over to Rowe Engineers. Rowe Engineers we've worked with before. They've done the lily pad harvesting in Lake Agawam, and they've also done these constructed wetlands throughout the state of New York and in other areas. So it's a great technology. We're very excited about it. We've got a number of letters of support from residents. It's also part of the global Southampton Village water quality plan. But without further ado, I'll turn this over to Rowe Engineers.
Could someone let Kelly in? Kelly Coulon?
I'm looking for.
Well, she comes in. Jackie, that last project, that bioswale, that got a positive recommendation as well, didn't it? By the water quality?
Yes. Yes, it did. They recommended full funding and then just were concerned about maintenance of the bioswale area.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
But there's Kelly, just have to unmute. There you go.
Okay, I think I'm in, right?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, let's just see if I can share. All right, so can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So my name is Kelly Coulon. I'm a principal engineer at Rowe Engineering and Geology DPC. We're out in Islandia, New York, still in Suffolk County. And so I'm here to talk a little bit about the Old Town Pond Constructed Treatment Wetland Project. So as many of you know, Old Town Pond has had some recent issues with algal blooms. And these are primarily caused by excess nutrients, primarily nitrogen in this case. So what we want to do is install a constructed treatment wetland to help address this nitrogen loading. As you can see here, the watershed for Old Town Pond is pretty long and narrow, and everything basically flows from north to south towards Old Town Pond. Groundwater follows a similar pathway towards Old Town Pond. This is from a study which is actually done by Chris Gobler, who you guys just heard from. But as you can see, the primary sources of nitrogen to Old Town Pond are from groundwater. This includes wastewater and potentially lawn and fertilizer water as well. So to kind of confirm this, we went out to the area just north of Old Town Pond earlier this year, and we conducted a small groundwater investigation. We installed 6 groundwater monitoring wells. There were 2 wells installed at each of the pink locations on that map. And we also took surface water samples just north of Old Town Pond and at Old Town Pond itself. We did see elevated concentrations of nitrogen, both in the nitrate form as well as organic nitrogen and ammonia. We saw that the primary, the highest nitrogen concentrations were in shallow groundwater. And so that's going to be important in terms of treatment. And we also saw that, you know, most of this nitrogen is most likely attributed to septic and cesspool wastewater, as well as fertilizer. So this is the constructed treatment wetland system. There is a parcel that's owned by the village just north of Old Town Pond. You can kind of see Old Town Pond in the bottom right-hand corner of the aerial. And what we want to do is put shallow groundwater through the system by collecting it in a shallow groundwater collection trench and pumping it to 2 different treatment wetland cells. The first cell is an aerated gravel cell, and that will be for nitrification. So it's basically taking ammonia and transforming it to nitrate. And then our second cell would be a wood chip cell, and that would be for denitrification, which is basically taking your nitrate and converting it to nitrogen gas, which will get rid of it from and prevent it from reaching Old Town Pond. The discharge would then be put into the small pond just north of Old Town Pond, and it would be aerated in that area. One of the cool things about this is that it's pretty like there's a lot you can do with it. It's a very flexible system. So we would also have the potential to skim and extract water from Old Town Pond and pump it into the system itself. So, whoops. So these are some of the benefits of the constructed treatment wetland system. I think the most important benefit is that it's highly effective at treating nitrogen. It would be specifically designed for this nitrogen load. When we were modeling it based on the results we were getting from our groundwater sampling and looking at some of the stormwater models, we think that we can treat about 25,000 gallons per day in that space, and then remove about 1,000 pounds of nitrogen per year. So it's pretty significant. These cells would all be subsurface flow. So that means that there's no visible standing water. You can walk out into these cells. They would be planted, so they would blend into the already park-like aesthetic of that area. In addition, they have fairly low operation and maintenance costs when compared to other conventional nitrogen treatment technologies. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. This is a photo of actually a treatment wetland that we have. It's more in upstate New York, but it kind of just shows how it can blend into the surrounding landscape.
What's in the location right now where the constructed wetland would go?
So it's not too much. It's basically kind of more like open space. You can sort of see it on this aerial and here too. So this cell would be over here. So it's open space that's owned by the village.
It's like a lawn area?
Yes.
Yeah.
And we strategically placed the cells to go around some of the larger trees in that area.
You know, I'm familiar with that area. And the right of way is large enough there. There's no private property there?
Yeah. Yeah, the brown line here shows the property boundary.
And there's no noise or smells associated with this?
No. I mean, we're just looking at stormwater here, so there's no issues with loud noises or odors really. I mean, we use treatment wetlands for treating a lot heavier waste than stormwater. We can use them for conventional wastewater and industrial wastewater as well. So this is a fairly light waste that we're dealing with. But you know, treating nitrogen is difficult to low levels, and biological treatment is pretty much the way to go for this. And we think we're pretty confident that we can get pretty low level treatment on this.
But then you would potentially, maybe this is a second phase, you skim pond water and send it back through the system.
Yeah, that's an option. One of the things that we were looking into is if there are any seasonal variations in groundwater loading. And if there are, I mean, maybe it would make sense to treat shallow groundwater perhaps in the summer months and then skim in from the pond itself in the winter. Included in some of our costs for this is a little bit of additional investigation work to kind of get a better idea of, you know, if there are any seasonal variations and where exactly would be the best way, or where exactly is the best location to collect groundwater.
The transport device or mechanism from the groundwater collection through the aeration and the wood chip denitrification zone, is that piping or is that just water flow? What is?
So it's piping.
It's piping?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah,
there'll be, but no pumps, or there will be pumps as well?
We would have to pump to put
Okay.
Water from the groundwater collection trench into the first zone of the treatment wetland, and then it can flow from gravity for the rest of it.
So it's only during like rain events will be operational, or will you be pumping water from the pond through it on a regular?
We would be pumping continuously.
Okay, so if there wasn't enough, if it wasn't being fed by road runoff, you're going to feed it with circulating pond water through it.
So there should always be enough groundwater to feed this, but if we're finding some seasonal variations in groundwater, or if we want to treat pond water for another reason, we can do it. There's enough flexibility in the system.
When you say groundwater, are you talking like a permeable reactive barrier type of mechanism, or are you talking about road runoff?
So we're not talking about road runoff, although certainly road runoff will flow into this. We're talking about a groundwater. So a permeable reactive barrier is one technology that you can use to treat nitrogen in groundwater, and it works good for nitrate. Here we have organic nitrogen, ammonia, and nitrate, which is why we're going with the aerated gravel cell first. The wood chip cell is very similar to a PRB. It has the same mechanism of treatment. It's just that here we have a little bit more control over the timing, and we have more control over any other potential issues such as pH issues, because denitrification is very sensitive to pH as well.
I guess I'm a little bit confused as to your catchment area here. It seems pretty narrow then.
Yeah, so it's just this purple thing. So it's basically a gravel collection trench. And it seems to us that it looks like the majority of loading from nitrogen is coming in and flowing south, and then like what the arrows are showing. So it'll pump a significant quantity of water, and we're dealing with water that's already with nitrogen that's already in the groundwater.
So the groundwater in that particular location is much higher in nitrogen than everywhere else?
Yes.
So
Okay.
you're deriving this from the sub-watershed study, the flow angles and depths of groundwater?
So we did look at that, but we also went out and put in our own groundwater monitoring wells to confirm. We looked at the sub-watershed study originally to kind of get an idea, but obviously we needed to confirm.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly, are you in this groundwater collection trench that is pumped? You have pump. Are you putting some kind of well point under there and pulling water out of the ground to put, and then move that water up into the aerated gravel nitrification zone and then into the system? So it's going to be pumped out of the groundwater collection trench, right, through a vacuum, right? You're going to create a vacuum with the pump, probably a shallow water pump system, and then gravity is going to do the rest, right? Through the rest of the system. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So I would imagine at some point the groundwater collection trench is going to start pulling air. If I mean, you may need to submerge the well points a little bit more.
Yes, of course, and we'll do pump testing before that, so we understand how quickly the aquifer will replenish, so we know how deep to set pumps.
Okay, so that trench, how deep do the plans call for the trench to be at this time?
We're assuming about 10 feet deep. We were seeing that's about where we were seeing the highest concentrations of nitrogen and groundwater when we were doing our sampling. We'd have to do a quick aquifer study to really understand if that's going to be deep enough, or if we'd have to go a little bit deeper. But that's something that we would do prior to installing anything.
Okay, interesting system. Thank you.
Well, that's to my point before, was that, that as I understand it, that sub-watershed has been pretty well characterized there. And I know that you've done your own test wells, but the test data that was provided to inform the sub-watershed study doesn't indicate that, as I recall, and I may be really wrong about that, so I probably should have said that, but I just want to be sure that you're looking at this holistically and not just in an area that you may have found higher concentrations of nitrogen. It looks to me like a lot of what you're measuring is runoff, as opposed to legacy contributions to the sub-watershed. Do I have that wrong?
I mean, I don't think so. Well, I mean, really what we were seeing is just a lot of the shallow groundwater had the majority of the nitrogen. I mean, if it were legacy, I mean, I suppose there could be deeper nitrogen in that area too. But we weren't seeing that based on our analysis.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and like all the treatment amounts and the amount that we would remove, that's all based on the data that we collected. So.
And Kelly, how deep are you to water there? It can't be too much.
Oh no, not very deep. I think only like 5 feet or so.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Charles, you want to see if the public is looking to weigh in on this?
I see no hands.
If you want to be heard on this and you're watching this meeting, you need to click the raise hand icon.
Thank you. No hands.
The public. All right, and we're gonna have a period at the end too, of sort of a cast.
No hands.
Supervisor
And
Schneiderman,
you're watching this meeting, you need to click the raise hand icon.
Thank you.
No
hands.
Supervisor Schneiderman,
All right, we're gonna have a period at the end too, of sort of a cast.
No hands.
Supervisor Schneiderman.
I see a couple of hands myself. I see John Halsey and Mayor Warren.
Yes.
They're already in.
Supervisor Schneiderman,
We're gonna have a period at the end too, of sort of a cast.
No hands.
Supervisor Schneiderman.
I see a couple of hands myself. I see John Halsey and Mayor Warren.
There's a loop.
They're already in.
Supervisor Schneiderman.
So we're gonna have a period at the end too, of sort of a cast.
No hands.
Supervisor Schneiderman.
I don't know what's going on.
I see a couple of hands myself. I see John Halsey and Mayor Warren.
There's a loop.
They're already in.
Well, so
Supervisor
we're
Schneiderman.
gonna have a period at the end too. Can anyone hear me?
I don't know what's going on.
Everybody mute.
John Halsey and Mayor Warren.
Everybody mute.
They're already in.
Well, so can anyone hear me?
I don't know what's going on. This is definitely a first for me. I've been doing this over 2 years now. Well, that was crazy. Let's start again. Jay, this is your fault. I know you got a button in there somewhere.
Oh my goodness. Talk about technical difficulties.
Okay, I think we're back.
That was a crazy loop we got caught in. Is everybody okay? Did we all survive that? Boy.
So I was just going to say it. Just I wanted to, on behalf of the trust, I wanted to support this application. We've been working with the village and also with neighbors around Old Town Pond, and so I just wanted to weigh in and express our support of this project.
Okay, thank
Whatever.
you. Thank you for only saying it once. Not 10 times. All right. And Mayor Warren, you also wanted to come back on. I think I heard you say that about 8 times during the technical difficulty period. So are you still there?
I'm still here. This will be the 9th time. So thank you. Just making sure you can hear me.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The only thing that I would add is I would also reiterate what John Halsey said, is that there's a lot of community support for this. We've had a number of focus groups and meet and greets around the neighbors, and there's unanimous support from the community on this, particularly for homeowners who live by Old Town. But also wanted to reiterate that while the focus has traditionally always been on Lake Agawam, we actually are making substantial progress with Old Town as well. In fact, we came in front of this board just a few months ago and asked for funding for an Old Town bioswale, and we're in the process of DEC permitting. So maybe as early as this spring, or even earlier if it's a mild winter, we also will be installing a bioswale on the east side of Old Town. So this project, in combination with that bioswale, will have a significant impact on mitigating the toxic algae in Old Town Pond. The other thing I wanted to reiterate is that we had a great presentation by Nelson Popenvoris about a bioswale where there seems to be great support for that project. And if you remember the model, it said that they can remove approximately 10.9 pounds of reduction of nitrogen. And the RU model shows that we actually can remove approximately 1,000 pounds of nitrogen per year. And so this is a very efficient project as far as the reduction of nitrogen. And I further wanted to point out that earlier today, we also had a presentation asking for upwards of $100,000 of funding for simply a study for a permanent reactive barrier. And here we are with really a project we'd like to pioneer in the town of Southampton, where we are ready to essentially break ground, or groundwater for that matter, for this project. And in a similar fashion to a PRB, we can remove some of the nitrogen and nitrates from the groundwater. But this particular project will allow us a bit more control over that process. So we think that it's a great overall project. There's a lot of excitement via myself, our village board, the Clean Water Committee. I want to thank John Halsey, Tom Latham, and Rob Coburn, et cetera, for their letters of support. So we're hoping that you could, of course, give this the strongest possible consideration for what could be a great project for not only the village, but also for the town and the town CPF Water Quality Fund. And thank you again, on board.
Thank you, Mayor. Jackie, what was the committee's opinion on this one?
The committee recommended funding $136,500. They supported the constructed wetland treatment project. However, they said at this time they suggest funding only the water quality testing, support and design test 2, draft engineering design test 3, permitting and regulatory support test 4, final engineering and bid support, as these tasks will result in a more well-defined estimate of construction costs.
And what's the time frame for those things to be fully developed?
I'm not sure, maybe Kelly, could you speak to the time frame?
Yeah, so for those tasks, I think it'll probably be close to maybe 8 to 10 months to complete the tasks through design.
So so this is really a 2-year project then?
Yeah,
The first year is getting all the data, and the second year is the construction?
yeah.
So we could break it up into 2 funding rounds, possibly. And Jackie, that's sort of what the committee is saying?
Correct, yes.
And then
They
we have
wanted,
a better sense of what the second funding round would be based on the completion of the tests in the first round.
correct.
Supervisor Schneiderman, I understand that that might be what the committee is recommending, but to essentially fund approximately 15% of this project, in my opinion, it falls a little short of what we were asking for, and would be disappointing, not just for the village, but also for the project. And I'm trying to think of the right words here, but our request was not for the 136,000. And as I said earlier in the presentation, I don't think that I'm not aware of constructed wetlands of this type that's being done in the town of Southampton. So I think that we'd have some great momentum, and this would be a great project, given that this would be a new technology that we could deploy. So I'm not sure if there's anything else that we can do other than, reiterate the ask. And again, we're very appreciative of everything the town board has done for us. But I don't know if there's any additional guidance you could offer us at this time.
Mayor Warden and Supervisor Schneiderman, if I could just speak to this a little bit on behalf of the committee. We also looked at the schedule and the budget here, and we are, first of all, very supportive of this project. But we recognize that the first task that we are recommending funding for, we're going to take about a year. There will be another funding round next year, and I think the committee would be very receptive to receiving a proposal for the construction of this system. By that time, there should be bids in for the system, and we will know better what the actual cost of the system will look like. And I think we'll be in a better position to support funding for the construction of the system when we have those costs.
Can they bid it, Stephanie, without knowing that they have the money to execute the contract?
I don't see why they couldn't bid it.
We typically in government will not bid a project that's not funded. So, but we can discuss that. I understand that. And next year, I think our water quality funds will be substantial, because it'll be based on, I think, this year's or the last reconciled CPF revenue, which have gone up. So this current round of funding, we have less than we will have in the next round of funding, as I understand it.
Yes.
So that may be a good argument to do this in 2 rounds of funding. But it sounds like they might actually finish all the tasks within 10 months, and they could potentially then bid it and get to work constructing it. If it turns out to be less money, we don't have to provide the entirety of the funding, right? So we can provide less based on the actuals. It may turn out to be more, though. We don't know either.
Well,
Correct.
Supervisor, I'd just like to remind you that we have, the board has an opportunity to review this, particularly relative to numbers and so forth after this public hearing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you, John. All right, so we will factor that into our decision-making, both the village's request and the committee's recommendation. And why don't we then move on to the next? I want to make sure we didn't have any more hands. We had that whole technical difficulty issue. I think we heard no hands about 7 times, Charles, but should I dare to ask if there's anybody, do you see any hands now?
You may ask. I don't think we're in the loop anymore.
Okay.
There are no hands though.
Okay, so let's move on to the next application.
Okay, so the next application is the Oyster Reef Sanctuary at Sabana Creek Inlet. And this is brought to you by the Town of Southampton Environment Division. So speaking on this, I have is Marty Shea and Teresa Mason.
Okay, Teresa's in and Marty's on his way. Okay, they are both in.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Marty Shea, Chief Environmental Analyst for the town. As indicated, I have with me Teresa Mason, Senior Environmental Analyst. This is a project that we're very enthusiastic about. The Environment Division is working with the Marine Office of Cornell Cooperative Extension, the Board of Trustees, the Bay Constables, FEMA, and Homeland Security in order to construct oyster reefs in the Great Peconic Bay at the mouth of Sabana Creek in Tuckahoe. Teresa, we can move on to the next slide. So this shows you the location of the project. We were actually seeking $239,000 in CPF monies in order to go forward with these plans. A large part of that would be reimbursed by Finland and Homeland Security, as much as $142,000. So this shows the location of the project. I'm sure you all know this location real well. It's showing Sabana Creek and Cownock, which flow into and front on the Great Peconic Bay, which are, of course, state waters. The aerial is also showing you Sabana Inlet Road. That's a real popular parking area where we've had repetitive storm damage. So as indicated, we're looking to construct 2 reefs, about 400 linear feet in total. The reef to the northeast would be 275 linear feet, and the reef to the south, as indicated, would be approximately 125 linear feet. And the goal of course, this project is to improve water quality, and it's also to enhance the town's coastal resiliency. The end of Sabana Inlet Road is an area where we've had repetitive storm damage. We had very significant damage after Superstorm Sandy. So one of the joint goals of this project is to buffer that area and reduce storm damage in the future. So as the board knows, oyster reefs provide a lot of water quality benefits. You're looking at a photo of a recently constructed oyster reef at the Shinnecock Nation. As you know, that project has been most successful. And oyster reefs are great because they actually can reduce algae blooms, including harmful algae blooms. They accomplish that in large part by removing excess nitrogen. And just looking at how effective oysters are in doing their job, one adult oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day. That means that about an acre of oyster reef can filter the equivalent of 36 Olympic-sized pools on a daily basis. When you construct an oyster reef, it improves water quality through filter feeding by the oysters. It also becomes a great site for colonization by seaweeds and potentially Spartina that provides habitat for other aquatic life. It also traps sediments, thereby improving water clarity in the bay. So this looks at the fetch that you have right now in the Great Peconic Bay, and the fetch is the storm-driven wave action and surge that you can get at this location. To the northwest, the fetch is nearly 6 miles. To the northeast, it's about 5 miles. So again, one of the benefits of the reef is not only improvement in water quality, but to reduce storm surge and storm damage. And the reef, once you get the reef started, it actually becomes self-sustaining. This is an excellent location for a reef because Sabana Creek is in great shape. It has a lot of nutrients that come out of the creek that'll feed the oysters. We're, as indicating, we're also hopeful that an eelgrass meadow will get established on the leeward side of the reefs. The only good eelgrass beds that we have in the Peconics in Southampton town are in Bullhead Bay. So if we can get an eelgrass bed growing in this area, would be a real positive, both in terms of enhancing water quality and in terms of biodiversity as well. And the long-term goal is to establish this area as a marine sanctuary. Again, the area would provide exceptional habitat for finfish, crustaceans, sea turtles, and seabirds. And it would also create an excellent area for kayaking, snorkeling, eco diving, and underwater photography. The Bay Constables have agreed to work with us to buoy and mark that sanctuary area. It would become no take area. That is, there would be no commercial harvest of oysters in this area, so that the oyster reefs would sustain themselves. This shows you what the oyster reef would actually initially look at. What you're seeing on the screen are locally manufactured concrete perforated reef balls. And what would be done in coordination with Cornell Cooperative Extension is these concrete balls would be filled with oyster shells, and they would be submerged in tanks at Cornell in order to allow for young oysters, which are introduced as a larva into the tank, in order to allow them to attach to the reef balls and shells. The next step, once there's evidence that we're getting a lot of spat that's attaching to the constructed reef balls, they would be transported to the site by barge. They would be lifted and installed by crane. They would be just under the surface of the water. The area again would be buoyed to make sure there's no boat navigation conflicts in the area. And then Cornell Cooperative Extension would monitor these reefs for about 5 years. They would provide underwater photography and video documentation in order to ensure that these reefs are successful. This just shows you the amazing growth that you can get with oysters at reefs. This is the photograph to your left shows the size of the initial larval spat on oyster shells. And within a little bit more than a year, you can see in the second photo how fast, when you have the right conditions, that these oysters can grow. And then what actually happens is they attract more spat, and the oyster reef, as the name implies, begins to build upon itself. So eventually, you're no longer going to see the concrete balls. You're simply going to see thriving, living reef structures. This shows you the permitting and construction timeline that we have in mind in the event that the monies, the CPF monies are authorized. We have to go through a design and engineering and permitting phase for essentially the next year. And then in the following year, in the spring, the oyster reefs would be installed. This gives you a cost breakdown for the preliminary design and engineering. We're talking about a cost of about $45,000. The purchase of the reef balls, again, they would be provided by a local manufacturer. The purchase and the actual delivery, that runs about $68,000. And then you see the cost laid out in terms of the Cornell Cooperative Extension hatchery staff, some additional installation costs, and monitoring and Cornell assistance costs. The 5-year monitoring would cost about $22,000. And then you see that although at this time we're requesting $239,000, FEMA and Homeland Security, who actually spurred our interest in going ahead with this project, are looking to reimburse a large portion of the expense of this project. The estimate right now, based upon going over these cost estimates and cost breakdown with the feds, would be that the town would be reimbursed for up to $143,000, so that the end all cost in terms of town CPF monies would be about $96,000. So that's just a quick sum up of the project. The FEMA and Homeland Security officers were recently in touch with me. They're eager to get started on completing the engineering plans so they can come fully on board with regards to proceeding with this project. And you may have just received a supporting letter from Louis Bacon for this project. He's a great supporter of Oyster Reef projects, both in New York City and on the East Coast. So he's very enthusiastic about this project as well. In the event that this project proves to be successful, we are looking to encourage private funded Oyster Reef projects elsewhere in the town. We see oyster reefs as not only a great means to improve water quality, but as an alternative to bulkheads and shore armoring. They're a natural means of addressing storm damage and erosion. And as the board knows, there are many areas in the Peconic Bay where there's been a history of erosion. So in the event that this project is successful, we will look for additional public and private sponsors of these types of projects. So that's just a quick sum up of the project. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And Teresa again is with us as well, and she can address any questions too. Thank you.
Marty, I have a couple questions. Those individual concrete reef structures, how big is a typical unit there?
I can answer that. That's generally size based on site conditions. I believe the estimated size that we are looking at is about 2 foot in height, but I would have to go through my notes and double check that.
What's the diameter?
So we're talking about a diameter of about 4 feet or larger, with, as indicated by Teresa, a height of about 2 feet. So
Marty,
obviously multiple concrete balls would be installed in each reef location. We looked at a number of methodologies, and the circular dome typically proves to be most effective, not only in attracting oyster spat because there's more water contact, but also in deflecting and reducing storm surge and wave energy.
So there's spaces in between them. They're not tied together, right? They're each individually placed?
Typically, they're individually placed. That's correct.
And they don't shift around in rough waters?
They may settle a little bit because you're going to have some sand sedimentation around the base of the reef balls, but they're sufficient weight. So they're not going to be toppled by wave action. The circular dome shape is also helpful in that respect. In the case of some oyster reefs, sometimes linear structures are tried, but those are more vulnerable to wave action and being toppled. The rounded circular reefs are a lot more secure.
Just to confirm, the estimated reef ball size is a 4 foot diameter and a 2.9 foot height, with approximately 3 inches of space between the balls. And other methods of oyster reef construction were actually rejected. Standard construction is either oyster shells in bags or oyster shells in steel cages. but because the joint goal for this was to do stormwater, storm damage mitigation, we went with the reef balls because those are stronger, less likely to topple over.
Do you, I guess for Marty, do you have issues with entrapment or impingement, or like can horseshoe crabs find their way through this to get to the shoreline? Are there any, wildlife type of negative impacts to these structures?
There shouldn't be because, as indicated, the reef balls are separated from one another. As you can see, the perforations, the reef balls are quite large. So any crabs or even horseshoe crabs, young horseshoe crabs that get in there should be able to easily get out. And of course, there'll be a lot of oyster shells inside the reef balls, and then the oysters will begin to build on that. So after a while, the perforations will disappear. So I'm not seeing any potential risk at this time in terms of impacts to horseshoe crabs
But you
or
did say,
other aquatic life.
you indicated before that it could help reduce erosion on the shoreline, but then you also have, intertidal species that depend upon the movements of the tides back and forth. Some of those marsh grasses, as you know, really need that push and pull. So are there any, it doesn't have a negative impact ecologically in any way that you're aware of?
No, because of the design of the reef balls, they still allow the tides to come in and to recede naturally. They slow down the water a little bit, but they don't actually block the water from coming in. So no, I don't see those types of impacts occurring.
And then I imagine they might actually create some habitat value by through having a reef type of structure, besides just for oysters.
Yeah, not just for oysters, for finfish, for seabirds that are attracted by the finfish, for other crustaceans. Because we have a productive eelgrass bed in Bullhead Bay, which is part of the Sabana Creek system, we do anticipate that we may have some eelgrass that will colonize on the leeward side of these reef balls. So yeah, actually what you'll see is the start of a whole diverse aquatic community that currently doesn't exist in that location.
All right, I'll turn it to the board. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Marty,
I
I
have a question
go
for
ahead.
you about navigation and recreational use of the area, and anyone who's shellfishing or things like that. Can you expound on that a little bit in that area? Would you think that there might be pushback in any?
Yeah, I'm sorry. We actually held a joint meeting with the trustees and the Bay Constables in Cornell at the site. And one of the many reasons for that joint meeting was to discuss those issues. Not only to ensure that the proper buoy system was put in place so that the reef balls would never create any boat navigation hazards, but also to ensure that the marine sanctuary and no take zone would be respected. And the constables and the trustees are very supportive of this project. They expect that there will be local community support for this.
Okay, thank you, Marty.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hi, Marty. This is a very interesting project. I love it. And I'm assuming that the oysters, as they grow between the different structures, are going to link up and create one unified reef along this area. And that's the construct that'll probably take whatever number of years, but some years in the future. and then it will change the water flow on the leeward side, and you're anticipating Spartina alterniflora to grow. Are you concerned about deposition in particular storm events of those areas? And is there a danger of these reefs having sand built up so that maybe the sand overtakes the reef and smothers the oysters sometime in the future? We would like the buildup of sand. I think that's a good thing. And I just, wonder if that was something that the engineers or you had anticipated.
Well, that's the reason why we have a 5-year monitoring plan. Part of that monitoring will involve going out after every significant storm event to look at any change in the reef structure to see if there's any partial burial of the reefs. What will happen again is as the oysters attach, the reef will grow outward and upward. So even if you have some sedimentation at the base of the reef, I don't think it's going to adversely affect the reef for the long term. In the event that we see that there are need for some modification, we'll look to what design changes are necessary. But at this time, we're not anticipating any kind of adverse effects. We're hoping to see something along the lines of like a coral reef, a very diverse, thriving, living aquatic community, great area for snorkeling, great area for diving, something that will not only be great for biodiversity and great for water quality, but something that will offer an ecotourism venture for people in that area.
Good.
One thing
ahead.
I'd like to point out is that, sea level is anticipated to rise here on Long Island at least a foot in the next 50 years or so. This reef will grow up as sea level rises. So it's a self-sustaining project. Even though there may be sediment buildup on the bottom, it will continue to grow up as well.
Thank you. And my last question is, and you don't have to address this now, what other locations in the town are you planning to do a project like this in?
Well, this is being done as a pilot project. So I want to wait a few years to see if this project is successful before I go forward with planning similar projects in other areas. But, we're certainly going to look throughout the town for possible sites. The Peconic Bays is particularly my focus right now. As remember, the Peconics is an area where we not only have water quality issues that we need to address, we also have storm impacts and erosion issues. So I think it's an excellent natural alternative to armoring of the shoreline. So hopefully it'll be a success.
Is there any, well, I'm sure with this research that you're looking at historic oyster shoals that existed in the Peconic Bays, years ago that no longer exist. I'm thinking specifically on the east side of North Haven, there was a shoal that was about 1.5 miles long, very productive area, and it's no longer.
Interesting. I didn't know about that. That's if you have any information that you can share with me on that, it would be awesome. And that's something that I'll discuss with Cornell Cooperative Extension. So I don't know what the cause of that reef failure was, but obviously there's sure something to be learned by any other oyster reefs that fail. So we will look at those other cases as well.
Thank you. Good project.
Thank you.
So Marty, I'm a little concerned about, you had said that the navigational buoys will be placed. Will they be placed at either end of the reef or all along the reef? With them being so close to the service, I'm a little worried about, boats impacting them.
Yeah, the Bay Constables would actually place the buoys, and my understanding is that the buoys would surround the reefs.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely ensure there are no issues in terms of navigation.
Okay, good. Thank you.
One of the design items that need to be addressed is making sure it's far enough outside of the channel. There is currently a navigational channel there. That's part of the design process, is to get enough soundings to make sure that we're far enough away from the channel, et cetera, et cetera. But the intention is to put it far enough away from the channel. It's not going to impede boating access. And then you have the additional navigational buoys.
Yeah, just some people do go out of the channel. So I think, like Marty said, if they're surrounded by buoys, that would be good. And also hopefully on some sort of notice to mariners, but that's for the future. I'm sure Bay Constables have it covered. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions for Marty or Teresa? All right, hearing none. Charles? Any hands?
I have Ed Warner wants to say something.
All right, let's bring him in.
Hello?
Yeah, I hear you, Ed.
Yeah.
Hi, hey, Marty. First off, I really want to thank you for taking this on. I think it's a really great project. As you probably know, we work with the college and have established oyster reefs in Western Shinnecock Bay. I think it's a great project. And we were also very supportive of the Shinnecock Nation and their beach restoration through Cornell and the Sandy relief money. I really feel with our board looking at sea level rise and all the stuff that we're going to be dealing with in the future, I think these oyster reefs could be coupled with living shorelines and make a more of a natural environment, especially in the Peconics, where you have extreme amounts of long wave fetches, and the next shore is almost 6 or 7 miles away, so you're going to have a lot of erosion. So it makes sense to place something in the environment, very, very similar to what's there already. If you go east of this area, there are multiple areas of very large rocks that are already on the bottom. There's a lot of questions about navigation and issues with that. But if you're a mariner over there and you have, local knowledge of the waters over there, you have to be very careful when you navigate between Sabana and Cow Neck, because there's a lot of rocks in the bottom. But I think it's a really good project, coupling up with what we do inside of Sabana with our reseeding of all the oysters. We have the first eelgrass sanctuary in the state that we declared in there back when I first was on the board. So a lot of the things that you talked about today, we're already doing on the town level. So coupling it with what you're doing is a great expansion on what you're doing. So very supportive of it. And I think it's a great project.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Charles, you have anyone else? All right, let's move on to the next one. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so the next project is the Mill Pond Carp removal. So this is aquatic habitat restoration for Mill Pond from the Board of the Trustees of the Commonalty of the Town of Southampton. To be present should be Ann Welker and I believe Ed Warner, who we just heard from.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Schneiderman and members of the town board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon on behalf of the Mill Pond Aquatic Habitat Restoration Project. My name's Ann Welker. I'm a Southampton Town trustee. I am accompanied here today by Trustee Ed Warner, who just spoke, and regrettably, our environmental analyst, James Duryea, is not feeling well and will not be with us today. I'd just like to give a quick summary of what's been done so far with Mill Pond and what we're looking to do. We would like to continue the management of the invasive carp, which has been done over the 2020 season. And at that point, there were approximately 25% of the carp that were estimated, of the 10,000 carp that were estimated to be in Mill Pond, removed at that time over a series of 3 different removals. One in June, one in August, one in October. We would also like to continue the installation with 6 additional floating wetlands. These floating wetlands serve to reduce phosphorus and nitrogen in the pond and therefore increase the occurrence of cyanobacteria blooms, which impair Mill Pond's water quality. We also would like to continue to implement water quality testing. We'd like to do it weekly between March and October and monthly between November and February in order to track the results of our efforts. All of these tasks have been included and recommended in the Mill Pond Restoration Project in the 2020 report, which was prepared by Princeton Hydro in December of 2020. The proposed aquatic habitat restoration project for Mill Pond would encompass a 5-year plan with the associated funding projected out over 5 years. All costs associated with this plan are estimates, and they're based on prior work contracted with Princeton Hydro. And I'd like to just, before I go forward, I'd like to just address the ask for this project at this time. The initial monies that were requested were as a result of taking Princeton Hydro's year project and, as I said, estimating it out over 5 years. However, in the process of moving through a bid proposal for a request for funding, we hope that our estimates will be drastically less than what has been estimated so far. The quotes that we received as a precursor to going out to bid with an RFP have been quite a range. We were able to obtain 6 different quotes. And just to note, 2 of the companies that we requested quotes of were either unable or unavailable to do this type of work. We also were fortunate to receive a $50,000 advance against this plan and for carp removal, because carp are best removed in either spring or fall. And that removal is presently taking place, and the carp that have been removed are significant at this time. In the initial work that was done by Princeton Hydro, there were 4 tasks. They were a water quality assessment, the installation of floating wetlands, the carp removal, and then a post-carp removal fish survey. We would like to continue with those 4 items moving forward. And just to quickly give you a bit of data here, as a result of Princeton Hydro's work in both the floating wetlands and the carp removal. It was noted that the total phosphorus levels were 30% lower than the 2018 study. The total suspended solids were 45% lower than the 2018 study that was a precursor to this work. And the chlorophyll A numbers were 60% lower than the 2018 study. So we feel that as a result of the work that's been done, it would be beneficial to the water quality and health of this highly impacted pond to continue with this work in its entirety. It's also worth noting that although there were harmful algal blooms present, because Mill Pond is very similar to Lake Agawam and Old Town Pond in that it's highly impacted by harmful algal blooms. However, in the 2020 season, there were no cyanotoxins present, although there was blue-green algae. And that's an important distinction to note because that means the work that's being done is having a beneficial effect on this pond. I'd like to just quickly go through the carp that was removed in October of 2019, June of 2020, and August of 2020 was a total of 33,309 carp for a total of 3,600 pounds of carp. And through the benefits of scientific research and literature, that amount of carp removal totals 9.2 pounds of total phosphorus that's removed, which equals 10,000 pounds of wet algae, and 1 pound of phosphorus is the equivalent of 1,100 pounds of wet algae. And so this is a lot of detail, but the net of it is that there was a 25% reduction in bioturbation as a result of the removal of carp. And bioturbation is basically the carp stirring up the bottom, and it increases turbidity, but it also increases the suspension of the nitrogen and phosphorus found here. The floating wetlands that we're requesting are the ones that are currently in there are 500 square feet, and there are 6 islands that are presently there. Each island removes approximately 3.25 pounds of total phosphorus. The fishery survey that was done post-removal in 2020 found that common carp was the highest percentage of biomass in the pond, although there were 10 different species that were noted. As an overall conclusions, then, we're looking at an extremely hypereutrophic water body in Mill Pond, and we're seeing elevated total phosphorus, even with the reduction, even with the work that's been done thus far. So it would be extremely beneficial for this water body to continue this work. I'd just like to give a bit of an update. As a result of the advance for this fall and the removal of the carp that was done this fall, they are at present in Mill Pond working, baiting the box trap. And the first poll revealed 2,527 carp that were removed, and that's an equivalent of 3,538 pounds of carp. So in one poll that's been done so far, and 2 more are to be done, I believe, in this coming week, the amount is nearly what was done in three removals previously. So to that point, the numbers that we have obtained that were projected both in the initial application and in the quotes, we are constantly refining these numbers with each bit of work that's done. So after this removal is done, after the removals are done this week, we'll be able to see how much carp is removed and at what cost, and then we can look forward. And as was previously stated, this is a 5-year project that we've proposed, but if we're able to remove significant numbers of carp, then it wouldn't have to go through, or it wouldn't have to be at this cost over the length of the project. Ed, is there anything you'd like to chime in? I've gone on quite a bit with my numbers.
First off, I think this is a really good project. The trustees have done multiple projects in there and with very little success. Now that the town has finally, basically put the whole entire catch basin in and drainage system that we asked for initially, that's huge, reducing the amount of runoff. So that's one of the components that were supposed to be done. It's done. But I think the most important thing is to evaluate after each time we go in there and do the carp remediation is to have a fisheries survey follow up on that's next year to see the amount of carp that are in there, the size of them, and the other fish that are currently present. Because eventually, I believe the goal should be is to have a balanced environment, to have fish that predate on the juvenile carp and keep them their population steady. So I'd like to basically, moving forward, get a pond limnologist to look at the pond and give us an idea of what types of species, indigenous fish species, we could put in there to keep a balance and check in that pond. And I think that eventually we will get the pond back to where it was hundreds of years ago. I mean, it's been basically a farmland sump for many, many decades, and now we're pushing back the tides, with our carp removal, with the wetlands that we put in there on top, the floating islands, removing the nutrients, working with the farmers and the local residents around there to have the best use of land practices on their properties. And also the drainage. So I think we've come a long ways. We still have a long ways to go, but I really feel we're headed in the right direction. So I really want to thank everybody that had worked on this, the committee for accepting it. And I think it's a really good project, and it shows putting this as a template, this in Agawam, that the most degraded water quality, lakes with the most degraded water quality in our town, we can push them back and take them back and make them, almost swimmable again. So I would like to thank everybody on the CPF 20 committee that worked on it, and everybody on the town board, and everybody else who has worked hard on these projects. Thank you.
I'd just like to chime in once more, please. Ed, to follow up on your point about Lake Agawam, there are over 90 lakes and ponds in the town of Southampton, and many of them are highly or somewhat impacted by harmful algal blooms. Harmful algal blooms are a global problem, and they are exacerbated by the climate change. It is temperature that drives these algal blooms, and there are many people working on this, not only in the United States, but throughout the world. But looking at Lake Agawam, you've used a multi-pronged approach with 2 different scenarios, looking to see what can be done to mitigate the effects of the harmful algal blooms there. We're trying something different in Mill Pond, and I believe that in order to get to, and what we're hoping is that this can be not only replicable, but scalable so that other water bodies would also benefit from the work that's been done in Mill Pond. In conclusion, I'd just like to echo Ed and thank everyone on the town board, the supervisor, the water quality committee, Jackie Fenlon. And I'd also like to commend the work of the Mill Pond Association and the Watermill CAC, who have been extremely persistent in working for the betterment of Mill Pond over many years.
And also we should thank Steve Abramson and Steve Lerner for pushing this forward. So they were instrumental in it. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. So Charles, unless do we have any board questions? If not, we'll go to the public.
Actually, I did have one question, just to clarify, Ed and Ann. You had talked about putting in a sterile species of a carp predator. Is that correct? Was that part of the included in your plan?
That was just a conversation. It was never, I haven't done the research. I reached out to this guy, Mr. DeSimone at the Cold Springs nursery, fish nursery, hatchery, and he has not gotten back to me, but I want to ask him, with his expertise in dealing with fish, what would be the best recourse to manage the carp in there? So
Okay.
before, I mean, we're not going to act on anything until we have a discussion with a couple experts.
Okay, so just to clarify, that would be above and beyond the ask.
Yes.
Yes. What we're just to chime in, John, there were several recommendations that were made in addition to what's currently taking place in the pond, but we felt to change too many variables would not be effective, and it would sort of skew the results. So we're looking to continue at this point with the carp removal and with the floating wetlands. If we see benefits from this, then perhaps we would incorporate a third, but that would be at a later date if we felt it was necessary, if we did not see a successful diminishment in the cyanobacteria levels in the pond.
Okay, thank you, Ann.
All right.
Steve Abramson.
All right, Steve.
I'd like to thank everyone concerned with this, the trustees, the town board, and of course, the Water Quality Review Committee. Mill Pond is important. It's important part of the watershed here in the town. It's 92 acres of fresh water feeding through the Mill Creek into 1,100 acre Mecox Bay, and it will ultimately affect the health of Mecox Bay. What we do here is very, very important. We've been making good strides. It's great to hear that we have that much of a catch on the first pull today. I wanted to clarify just a couple of points, and the Princeton Hydro report, while it indicated that it removed 9.2 pounds of phosphorus for the 3,600 pounds that they took out, that's only the phosphorus that was actually embedded within the biomass of the fish. And that the amount of extra phosphorus that those fish and bumbling around the bottom disturb is a large multiple of that amount. So this is a very effective result that's happened there. We might also consider looking at, I think, as they have, we've discussed this with the trustees and we've been given a nod, and they've been successful in using it or plan to use it, at least in Lake Agawam. They have a machine to actually harvest the lily pads, not the rhizomes, but the shoots, so that the lily pads would return every year. But before dying down, it's too late for that this year, but before dying down and returning those nutrients into the water column, they can be harvested out. Very much the same way with success that the floating wetland islands are going to be removing the nutrients from the water system. And that's really all. I shouldn't have to say anymore, except that I know that the CAC is very much in support of this, and Rachel Verno was submitting a letter to the town board in support of this activity, and we hope that you will go ahead and approve it all. It's very important to do that fishery survey, as Ann mentioned, because we really need to know how effective the removal is. The biomass of fish in Mill Pond is 94% invasive carp. So, and another few percentage of that is also the shad, and that would the elimination of those two would be a long way towards the success here. I should point out that in addition to Princeton Hydro, the prior firm that had been involved as limnology experts on behalf of the town, InterScience, had also recommended that the number one thing that could be done would be to remove carp. And Princeton Hydro emphasized in their report of 2020 that the number one thing that we could possibly do in this coming year was to continue the removal of carp from Mill Pond.
All right, thank you, Steve, and thank you for all the work you've been doing for Mill Pond. Is there, Charles, anyone else on this? All right, then.
Yes, I have one other question.
One other, okay.
Well, actually two, yeah.
Okay.
Steve Lerner and Bob Mathis.
I know that Steve is up in Maine, and who knows what that internet connection is for him up in hinterland where he is. There he is. I see him coming in. Steve, you have to unmute. There you go.
Oh, hi. Okay, Bob Macris here. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, anyway, I don't want to take everybody's time. I just wanted to say that as a resident of Mill Pond, I wanted to express, my appreciation for all the work, that the trustees and the town have done to support this project, which, as Steve has said, is very important not only for Mill Pond but for the greater community. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Steve Lerner. I think you need to turn your volume up.
Oh, well.
We can hear you now.
We had you. We had you.
Looks like
Unmute.
Unmute, Steve.
I think he's frozen.
It's not that cold in Maine. Sorry, I couldn't resist. John understands.
Can you hear me?
No.
Yes, we can.
We can. Yes.
Okay, so my question is, can we possibly dovetail with Rowe Engineering when we contemplate doing the lily pad removal, since the machinery will be down here, and it would be, I would think, more efficient to do it at the same time they're doing their removal? That's my question.
Somebody want to take that on? I wasn't sure lily pad removal was actually part of the of this.
It's part of the 5-year plan.
It is, okay. So does it tie in with when?
It would be an additional ask on top of what we're presently asking for. So it is part of the plan, but we hadn't requested the funding for it at this point.
All right, so first we'd have to fund it, but I think that Steve's point of tying it in, I don't know if there's specialized equipment that has to be mobilized.
We have to look into that a little bit more. There's a permit that's necessary, but of course, it would make complete sense to do it at the same time that's being done in Lake Agawam. But there actually is an aquatic harvester that is based in East Hampton, so it's not coming from that far.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Steve. And thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
No other hands.
No other hands. Okay, let's take the opportunity to move on to the next one then.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, so moving on, we have Whispering Fields Court, farm runoff remediation. Oh, sorry. And sorry, that would be the Mark Robinson was the applicant's representative on this. If you see him, Charles.
Okay. Yeah.
Perhaps it's Don Middleberg or an engineer that they have working.
I have Don.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I just want to get out of here.
Oh boy.
Didn't hear that. All right, so do we have somebody presenting on this?
Charles, you're letting someone in?
Don
Okay.
Middleberg.
Maybe Mr. Lerner can mute.
Yeah, I can help with that. Don, you have to put on your video. There you go.
And now you have to unmute, Don. Don, you're muted.
All right, sorry.
There you go.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
All right, and we have two other people, Drew Bennett and
Okay.
Andrew Wimpheimer, if we can get them in.
Yep. I don't see. I don't see.
You see Drew?
Yes, he's in.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for your time and attention to the town board. Greatly appreciated. I'm Don Middleberg. Okay. I am Don Middleberg. I'm a year-round resident of Whispering Fields Court. I am also a director of the Whispering Fields Homeowners Association. Joining me is Andrew Wimpheimer. I don't know if he's on or not, but Andrew is also a full-time resident. And Drew Bennett, who is a consulting engineer who the Homeowners Association has retained to help us on this particular project. So thank you for all of that and the opportunity to talk to you and present our program. This is really about two benefits, two key takeaways. First and foremost is environmental. I'll explain why we need it, but it's environmental and water quality enhancement. The second is safety, public safety, both of which are obviously extremely important to not only our block, but to the immediate area. So let me try and take you through some of the particulars here. Okay. So what you see on the lower left is our street when we get a significant downpour. And the street, the Whispering Fields Court Street, comprised of 13 homeowners, is, sorry, comprised of 13 homeowners is actually, it floods significantly. What you can't see is the silt and the depth, but I can tell you from personal experience that we get to 3 to 4 feet of water in the middle of that road. So the concern is for public safety, for fire, police, ambulance to get through, which is virtually going to be impossible. So what I would like to do now is, and Drew, are you available?
Yes, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, you're coming great. So what I'd like to do is turn this over to Drew Bennett, who's our engineer, who can explain a little bit about the project, the benefits, and where we are to date on this.
Good afternoon. I'm Drew Bennett, a consulting engineer doing business in East Hampton Village. Whispering Fields community retained our services back in 2020 to analyze the problem and develop a plan of action. There are some photographs in the application which show a heavily flooded roadway, which is Whispering Fields Court. I want to point out that there is a 60-acre field north of the community, the subdivision, and of that 60 acres, 40 of it flows downhill and into the Whispering Fields Court community, and flows through Whispering Fields Court onto Head Pond Road and onto Narrow Lane, which then flows into a tributary of Mecox. And I think actually the tributary is a little further down if someone's using the cursor, but in any event, it's in a medium priority watershed area. Unlike the projects you heard earlier this afternoon, which we're looking at the first flush of pollutants off a street, very small pollutant loads. In this case, we're looking at extreme loads which carry an immense amount of sediment-laden runoff through a community into tributaries of Mecox. So this primarily occurs when there's a rotation in crops, and particularly in the springtime. And what this results in is probably over 1 million gallons of stormwater runoff, that's based on our estimates, that flow through the community, flood the community, and continue to flow down municipal roadways into Mecox and result in a pulse of high turbidity water that's containing sediments and other contaminants such as nitrogen, phosphorus, and then most likely arsenic. And so we've developed a plan which is based on best management practices in agricultural areas, and we've worked with the owner of the farmland to come up with basically a farm field retention area, which will be located in the southeast corner of the farm field upstream of the Whispering Fields. It's about 245 feet by 270 feet deep, and it'll be surrounded by a native grass buffer area to reduce erosion. And the intent of this is to trap sediment as it's, the intent of this is to trap stormwater runoff and sediment that's carried in the stormwater runoff in this retention basin and infiltrate it into the ground and prevent it from overflowing into Whispering Fields Court, except in the most extreme events. In our design, this basin will capture runoff from a 5.25 inch rainfall, which is a very substantial rainfall, and prevent it from overflowing into Whispering Fields Court and into the watershed area of Mecox. And that's basically it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
All right. Any questions? All right, I guess, Drew, good to see you. So this section of farm field is currently it's being farmed, right?
Correct.
All right. And are there no requirements that the farm contains its own runoff already? I mean, it's pretty traditional to see on farm fields basins like this.
Correct.
I'm not aware of that being any requirement of that. I mean, that's a best management practice. In this case, I think the property owners reached out initially to the town highway department. They've reached out to other people in the town to see what could be done. And I'm not practicing law. I can't opine on what the farmer's requirements are. They did reach out to the farmer to see if they could change agricultural practices, which they did attempt to do with some benefit, but they're most vulnerable during the non-growing season, in late winter, early spring.
Are there any, has the town acquired any interest in the farm field in terms of development rights or not?
The farm field is privately owned.
It's privately owned and they have not sold any rights to it.
That is
correct.
They have not sold rights, that's correct. Yep.
So are they willing to, allow this structure to be created and lose that section of farm field? And, once, the town is providing a grant to construct this thing, I don't want to see 3 years from now, them changing their mind and saying, oh, no, we want to subdivide the land now and we want that for a home lot. So how would we reconcile those issues?
You want me to respond to that, Don?
Yeah, if you would, Drew, and then any.
Okay, so the person who's most involved with the negotiations of this is not on the call. He's away traveling, unfortunately. But there have been negotiations between the Whispering Fields Homeowners Association or Property Owners Association and the farmer and the property owner who actually owns the field. And they are developing a legal agreement to allow this basin to be constructed. And in fact, the farmer agrees to maintain the basin. And in the event that the basin is not maintained properly, the Property Owners Association would have the right to go in and do the maintenance themselves. So there is a legal agreement being prepared to facilitate this. I'm not.
That's good. There is a clear understanding between the farmer who rents the property and the homeowners association. That understanding has been drawn up into a legal contract awaiting signatures. But that gives us full access to the basin if the farmer does not maintain it. But the farmer, we have good relations with the farmer. Has indicated that he will maintain the property.
All right, so I guess I wasn't clear on that. So you guys, the association owns the underlying land it's rented to the farmer?
No.
No?
No, it's a private owner who rents the property to Rich Corwith of the Corwith Farms.
All right, so is the owner consenting to have this drainage structure?
Yes.
Installed, as well as the farmer who rents it, as well as, so everybody's agreeing?
Correct.
And you're just
in the ag district? Is this property right now in the agricultural district as far as receiving any kind of tax benefits or anything? Do you know, Drew, or either one? Just going to the point of what the supervisors mentioned, that we're not, we don't expect a subdivision map filed on this anytime soon.
Right.
I would assume so. On the 57 acres, he's paying about 4,000. So.
Yeah. I recall. I think there was something to do this, where it was preserved at least temporarily in some type of way. I wasn't sure if we had development rights or if it was in an ag district.
So would the current owner expect payment from you guys to use the property in this way? Is that your expectation?
No, there's no payment to the owner.
Yeah. It's kind of unusable land, John, because it is an area gets flooded, so it's not even. I don't think it's even good farmland.
It's the mud hole in the field.
Right, and I think they have the same issue on the northern part of the field as well, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, and I've seen it puddle on the other way too. Yeah. So it's not this particular spot is not good agricultural property.
Right. The farmer loses nothing.
Right.
Yeah. Right, and maybe this question is for Lisa Combrink, our CPF program manager. I was just about to try to pull up the language of the law, but typically we can't provide grants just to control stormwater runoff. It has to be an environmental component. So I want to just make sure that this is the kind of project that will qualify. It looks to me like a typical farmland sump area. A lot of them have them. And we could potentially see a whole lot of these types of things coming in. Why dig it yourself when the town can dig it? So can you just opine on that issue, whether it's a qualifying project?
Tommy John, would you know?
Yeah, this is covered under state law, and this is why I've been working with the residents of this area here, and It's in Town Law 64, it is stormwater collecting systems as a way of mitigating problems with the environment. And what our concern is here is that in the Whispering Field system, they actually do have a drainage system that would cover the subdivision, but unfortunately they also get drainage off of a very large farm field, which is an active agricultural production that under Ag and Markets Law is exempt from drainage requirements. And so what happens is that the water passes through this system and goes to a bubbler out onto Scuttle Hole Road, travels down Scuttle Hole Road, crosses Scuttle Hole Road. It ends up in Hayground Cove, which ends up in Mecox Bay. This is part of the Mecox Bay watershed. And when you look at the water that runs off this field, it looks like a cup of coffee. You know, it's carrying a lot of sediment. And so that is the main reason for this, to try to stop that stormwater runoff. We believe that stormwater runoff is, I don't know, low-hanging fruit with, some of our water bodies. So we're trying to capture it and get it into the ground before it gets into the system.
I think, though, the question was to Lisa, whether or not that qualified under CPF. I believe it does, but it's a good question for Lisa to answer.
Sorry, I didn't mean to take Lisa's thunder, but I definitely wanted to make sure that we understood the drainage thing and that it was a pass-through system, and that state law, and I'm looking at it here, it does cover stormwater drainage. But thank you, Lisa.
Thank you for the clarification. So this project is proposed does fall under non-point source abatement and control. And when the advisory committee looked at the overall project, determined that it would likely reduce the impacts on the down gradient water bodies, surface water bodies, and it would qualify under that particular designation under our qualifying water quality projects.
Great, thank you, Lisa.
There is a section, stormwater collecting system. So maybe it qualifies under that.
Yeah, I think this is a really good solution to this problem that the residents
No,
have.
it definitely fixes the flooding problem,
Yeah.
right? That I'm completely aware of. It's a great project in and of itself. It's just whether it can be funded with water quality money.
Well, yeah, I think what
Yeah,
the problem is, go ahead.
It is recognized as a type of project under the state law that is covered under these types of projects.
Okay, Drew, what were you going to say?
I think it's important to understand that the problem is really twofold, in that the field generates an awful lot of runoff in certain conditions, large storm events. And this field has flowed into Mecox for a very long time. And sometime over the last, whenever Whispering Fields was developed, the field now flows through Whispering Fields on its way to Mecox. And so it's the local ownership or the property owners association that sort of brought this to a head to say, hey, look, there's an awful lot of stormwater runoff flowing through our street, inundating our street as it migrates towards Mecox Bay, which is, again, in the medium priority watershed area that we're talking about. And I think Tommy John described the flow path accurately.
It's also addressed on page 59 and page 60 of our own water quality plan as one of the stormwater target areas.
True. So, I mean, what's the 75,000? It's just basically to excavate this hole, and they're transporting the topsoil, I guess, off-site.
It's to excavate the hole. It's a broad, shallow hole so that we can keep it sort of as a grass meadow and not require water safety features, so to speak. So it's excavation and planting of native grasses in the basin and around a 50-foot buffer around the basin itself.
What's the bottom of it? Is it
sand?
It's sand.
Yeah, so the soil borings of the area show, as typical with the Bridgehampton silty loam, 3 to 4 feet of, well, it's probably 2 feet of topsoil and then 3 or 4 feet of clay. And then once you get through that, it's beautiful, well-washed sand that's a high rate of infiltration.
Okay,
So the surface soils are heavy, poorly drained, but once you break through the very fertile topsoil, there's wonderful sand for infiltration.
Are you keeping all the soil on site or are you transporting it off-site?
My understanding is it's being taken off-site.
That's true. That's correct, Mr. Schneiderman. Just so you know, we've bartered the soil to the contractor or the construction group, and as a result, we've been able to find some significant cost savings as well.
Sure, it's valuable, the soil.
It's gold.
So I'm just trying to understand, do you have a budget for the, how do we end up at 75,000?
We went out and actually got a contractor quote. Initially, I had done an estimate of my own, which was 6 figures, low 6 figures. And it was decided by the owners that, you know what, we need to get some real numbers. So we went out to contractors that can do this work. I think there's a cost proposal that's included in the application, and that's the basis of the grant application.
So I have a question. How deep a hole, and do you know what the proximity is to groundwater beneath it?
Sure. So the total excavation depth is on the order of, I'm doing this from memory, but I believe it's on the order of 6 feet in depth. And the side slopes are relatively shallow at a 1-on-4 slope, which is a fairly gentle slope. And the depth of groundwater is on the order of 25 to 30 feet.
Okay, so that's in, do you happen to know what the travel time area is?
It's identified as a medium priority area, so I believe it's not 0 to 2 or 0 to 5. It's probably
Like
I don't know the exact. I think it's the medium zone, not the fastest, but the second fastest.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
What's the footprint in terms of acreage?
It's a little over an acre.
Okay.
The whole farm is about 57 acres, I think.
Correct.
Right.
So it's an acre and it's gently sloping down, and then the deeper portion is probably about a half acre.
Yeah, that's correct. And the intent is no fencing, that it's still part of the vista, and that someone can get in there periodically every few years and scrape the silt cake off the bottom to maintain infiltration. Pretty low tech, but well demonstrated.
That was my next question. So you are going to remove the silt occasionally and maintain it. Otherwise, you're going to end up with standing water here.
Exactly, and that's not in anyone's best interest. So maintenance is a critical element of that, and those arrangements will be performed by others. It's not part of this grant application.
And the sediment will capture a lot of the contaminants that you're talking about. Some yes, some no. That really depends on what's under there. But yeah, so I think that's an important point the supervisor is bringing up, that you're going to manage that over time and dispose of that silt material carefully, particularly if it's phosphorus laden or legacy agricultural fertilizer. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Any other questions? Well, let's go to the public. Anyone listening, you got to raise your hand virtually by clicking the raise hand icon. Charles, do we have anyone?
I see no hands.
All right. All right, let's move on to the next one.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you. So the next project and the final project is the West Hampton Beach Downtown Storm Water Improvements. This is a non-source abatement and control requesting $223,000. I believe the applicant's representative should be Mayor Moore, if she's present, and then she might also have supporting staff, but I'm sorry, we did not get their names.
I don't see her. No one's raising their hands. Oh, I got one. James.
I know we had
James is coming in.
We had trustee Teeman was on earlier, could not stay.
He had to go, he had to leave.
Yeah.
Jennifer is the deputy mayor. Okay.
Oh, we're up there. Are we there? Yep. Okay.
Jennifer's also coming in.
Can you guys hear us? Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Deputy Mayor Ralph Urban. Mayor Moore unfortunately could not be with us. She's on a well-deserved vacation. I think she's visiting Hoover Dam right about now. So, I will be giving the presentation, and I have James Veerling from H2M with us in case there are any technical questions. Basically, I would like to emphasize that this is a separate project, but contingent going along with the sewer project that CPF and the trustees have generously supported us in. As part of the sewer project, we had 3 alternate bids built in for 3 different parking lots. The parking lots were being partially disturbed by the sewer project. And it occurred to us that why not take the opportunity to improve all 3 parking lots. So we got 3 alternate bids, 1 for each of the 3 parking lots. And essentially the trustees of the village decided to go ahead with all 3 alternate programs. And what we are asking for is funding for the stormwater capture, and we have additional catch basins, and with the Parlato parking lot, which is the southernmost parking lot, the outfall goes directly into Moneybog Canal. So we additionally have a hydrodynamic separator included in the proposal for that. So it's just basically, and it'll increase stormwater capture in all 3 of the parking lots. And the $223,000 that we're asking for is just the stormwater or drainage component of the parking lots. We're also increasing the number of parking spaces in all 3 lots, improving the lighting, increasing green space. So it's an overall improvement to the parking lot, but the drainage component is what we're asking for support for.
Right, we'll go to questions. You know, Ralph, these structures require significant maintenance in terms of changing out filter media. Are you guys?
Our DPW, actually, we had the same hydrodynamic separator put in for the Main Street project. And the DPW, our DPW is maintaining that and will maintain the additional hydrodynamic separator as well.
Okay.
It's a little bit smaller than the other one for the Main Street project, but it's the same.
You're not looking for the costs associated with buying filtration media.
No, this is just the installation cost. So these costs were actually the cost bid from the contractor. So we had already had the costs. So these are the identified cost bid from the contractor for this drainage improvement.
So how many of these structures would you be purchasing?
So it's 1 hydrodynamic separator in the Mill Road parking lot, which didn't really have much drainage to begin with. A lot of that ran off into the road, which then went to an outfall down at the Village Marina. That one we added, we have 63 leaching galleys. So those are going to groundwater. So that's removing it from an outfall. The Glover's Lane parking lot, which was the northernmost one, is that one had some existing drainage, but we added, I believe 9 more, 5 more leaching pools and 5 galleys in there, just to increase the water storage capacity to account for the lot. And then the last lot is the Parlato lot, and that's the one that's receiving. Unfortunately, with that lot, it's right adjacent to the bay. Or sorry, not the bay, but Moneybog. And there is a very little separation of groundwater, so subsurface leaching pools were not an option. So that one goes out to an existing outfall through the bulkhead and directly into surface water. So that one is getting the hydrodynamic separator to remove sediments, floating contaminants, garbage, oils, and that kind of stuff.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one question. This is something that came up from the committee. The last time around with the hydrodynamic separators in the Parlato Drive lot, the village had apparently not remembered to include dewatering costs and had to come back to CPF for additional funding for that construction. Are dewatering costs for the installation of the hydrodynamic separator in the Parlato Drive lot this time around, are they included in the proposed price?
Yes, so like I said, these are the prices bid. We had soil borings done during design. So dewatering for any of these installation was accounted for in that price. That $223,000 included the dewatering costs.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Stephanie, because I was about to ask something similar because the costs were different. So I appreciate that.
Stephanie, what did the committee recommend on this?
We recommended funding, fully funding it. We, think that this is a good use of CPF funds. I'm familiar with all three parking lots, and certainly the surface water runoff in the Parlato Drive lot, particularly on that south end, is troublesome. So these projects are definitely recommended.
Thank you. All right, any other questions? If not, we'll go to the public. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard? Charlie,
See no hands.
no hands. All right. All right, thank you, everybody. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on any of the projects? Any of the ones that we've discussed today?
Supervisor Schneider, we've got Mayor Warren back here.
Okay, Mayor.
Village of Southampton. So
Okay. Go ahead,
thank you again for the time today. There was a number of great projects. In between the public hearings, I picked up the phone and called up Charlie McGuckin, who is one of the principal engineers over at RU, and I asked him how he felt about the $136,000 of funding and what that would get us, and just wanted to make a few additions, for the town board. So we had initially spoke about a time period of 8 to 10 months, and we believe that we actually don't need that much time. We are essentially in position now to go out to bid. We just need to do a little bit more work, such as a village-funded survey or anything along those lines. And while the $136,000 is nice, essentially we don't actually need $136,000 to get to the bid phase. We actually probably need a fraction of that, maybe 25 to 35% of that amount. What we do need is obviously the full funding for this particular project as we can move quickly, maybe just a quarter of a year in order to be in process to go to bid, and then we quickly can move forward. So I'm here at the end of the presentation. This is exactly what the water quality improvement plan of the CPF is used for. It's great to see our neighbors put together plans as well. And what I would add is we were, very interested in the MECOX plan, the 5-year plan that Trustee Ann Welker and Ed Warner had presented to us. And what that plan shows is that what neighboring municipalities do could then be used as a example for other municipalities. Case in point, the harvesting of the lily pads. Potentially there's a symbiotic relationship or a shared services relationship that could be had over with Mecox Bay. So again, we think that this project is a novel project. We think it's a new technology, and we believe that it should be funded in its entirety so that we can quickly go to bid and get moving on this project. And while it's encouraging to see the committee who works very hard, and we appreciate all of their hard work, recommend fully funding for almost all of the projects we hope that the committee would also reach back out to RU, or the town board would reach back out to RU engineers to fully fund the Village of Southampton. The village does not ask for a whole lot. In fact, I enjoyed the presentation that the West Hampton Beach downtown stormwater improvements prepared, and we've watched over the last several years that West Hampton receive a large bulk of the CPF water quality funding. So we will have projects in the future. We do also like the bioremediation is being done in Mecox. We also will be asking for sewer money. But over the last several years, as far as the water quality fund is concerned, we haven't really asked for a lot. And so I know this wasn't a no as far as, was essentially asking to come back. I just wanted to reiterate, on behalf of the village, about how eager we are to embark on this project. And we're also happy to provide the town any other additional information so that it could be available to you and to the public.
Mayor,
So thank you.
I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying fully. So you're saying the 136,000, actually you don't need all of that money. You only need about a quarter of that, which is around 34,000, but then you need the remainder. So basically it would be a reduction of about 102,000 from what you requested. So you requested 981,700. So you're looking for 879,700 by my calculations. Is that correct?
Well, what we're asking for is to be, fully funded in the amount of $981,700.
I thought you just said you didn't actually need that first phase. You're mostly done with it. You only needed a quarter of the first phase.
My point is that we are much closer. We're essentially there as far as going into the construction phase. For example, earlier on, the Sagaponic Lake asked for money for a study, 50% match for a PRB. That project is still in the study phase. We are essentially past the study phase here, and we are just about ready to go into, breaking ground. We don't need much more time. We thought that we had prepared.
You're continuing to confuse me a little bit. I don't want to provide money you don't need. You sounds like you're ready to go out to bid, yet the 136,000 was supposed to prepare you to be able to go out to bid, but then you just testified that you only need a quarter of that money to go out to bid. So I'm trying to be helpful here, but I also don't want to provide funding you don't need. So it sounds like you need roughly 900,000, not what, 981,000. I'm rounding off now, but 879,700 based on what you said before, but we could kind of tweak it a little bit based on how much work you've actually already done and funded. But I don't want to be duplicative here. It's, if you've already done the work and already funded it, unless you're trying to get reimbursed for it, I don't really understand.
Again, the point that I'm trying to make here is that we're coming, requesting, again, $981,700 of funding, not $136,000 of funding. And while it's nice to have that $136,000, that will be enough to, do the minimum work that we're being asked. What we're stating is that we are essentially really there as far as, going out to bid. We can go out to bid and we can be completed really by the end of this year. So we're not looking for 8 to 10 months. We think that's generous. Maybe we're being overly conservative. We believe that we had provided all of the necessary documentation that was needed for this grant, and ultimately we believe that we can. Yes, you are correct. We can probably get to the next phase that you're asking us to do for less. But we're hoping not to do this in just one minor phase that we can quickly do. We're hoping to be able to break ground and go out to bid versus doing it in the fashion that essentially we're being asked to do it in.
Hey, Mayor, is the village committing any funds to this project?
The village has already financed the initial groundwater and surface water study. That is essentially the equivalent to the $107,000 that the first project of Sagaponic Lake had asked for. So we did that in an efficient manner. So essentially, if there's an ask that we commit money to this, we'd happily work on that. Perhaps we can go out to some of the neighbors as well. But ultimately, I would consider this to be, one of the most important, water quality projects the village has worked on in the last several years. And so I just want to do my job to give it that last push to try to convey the importance of this overall project.
Anybody besides me have questions for the mayor?
Well, I don't have questions, but I do want to reiterate that we have an opportunity to discuss this as a board after this public hearing.
Of course. Of course. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jay.
Anyone else, Charles, looking to be heard?
I see no other hands.
All right, I will make a motion to close the public hearing. Lisa, do we need, or Jim, do we need to leave this open? I can't remember what we did with the last one. 2 weeks, maybe? Written comment? Would that make sense? All right, I'll make a motion.
Yes.
Yeah, leave it open for.
I think that's what we did. That's what we did with the last hearing, was all left open for 2 weeks for comment.
All right, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing, but leave the written record open for 2 weeks from today.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Call the vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. So that's public hearings. We're gonna move on to public portion. This is the time where anyone can speak on any topic that they wish. They have 3 minutes to make their comments known. It could be an item on one of the resolutions or any other topic. So is there anyone who wishes to be heard in public portion? Please.
Yes, I have a few people.
Click the raise your hand icon.
Just wanted to say thank you and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, Jacqueline.
Thanks, Jackie.
You're welcome. Thank you.
They are coming in next. Andrea is first.
Andrea Bernard, yes.
Yes, hi, Andrea. We can
Hi. Hi, thank you. My name is Andrea Bernard and I live at 334 Little Noyak Path. I really appreciated listening in to this entire program because, this meeting, because I see the breadth and the scope of what's in front of you, and I don't want to take a lot of time, and I'm not expecting any resolution. I just wanted to put something on your radar and tee it up. And I see Member Scavone is here, and he and I have spoken several times, so it's nice to actually see you face to face. The reason that I'm popping up here is that our road is a trustee road, and several of my neighbors dialed into a trustee meeting several days ago. They suggested that I come on to this call, so I'm here. So we've been talking to the trustees about several public safety issues on our road. We have dead trees. Unfortunately, we're hit with the pitch pine disease. We have several trees that are dead on the side of our road. And in the past 2 weeks, first a branch and now a limb has fallen into the street. We're lucky there were not accidents and people were not hurt. We have some issues with speeding, minimums, speed limit signs, no sign as you enter that this is a two-way road. And it's a very, very busy thoroughfare. It used to be a little country lane, but now it's very, very busy. We've had 2 house fires in the past year and a half. We have no hydrants. The reason that I'm on this call is that I understand we are not a town road. I am not in your jurisdiction with respect to my particular road. I'm here asking that you help us neighbors figure out how to put some sort of work plan together to figure out what we need to do for the improvements we need on our road. And in particular, these dead trees with limbs falling is starting to become of tremendous concern because one hit was just feet from a car and a driver. The town, and Tommy John was very helpful with this also, the town or someone came out and put orange bands around several of the trees that are right on the road. I've been sending emails for the past 5 days saying, what do these orange bands mean? Does that mean somebody's getting a quote? Are those trees coming down? So I'm just here just to say hello. Thank you all for all of the time and all the work that you're doing. I just really ask for your help to see how we can facilitate some immediate solutions. There's probably some quick hits that could be very helpful to our street. I know that we need a longer term plan with respect to significant road improvements and water. But it's kind of scary to be a resident and see, the house across the street from you on fire and know that, we just have to hope that it's not a bad fire and the pumper trucks get there in time. And the second, this was the beginning of September, the trucks, it was a contained fire, the trucks were there fast. But we were also here the day that the Hearst house burnt to the ground. And that was very scary for residents of our street. So again, thank you for your time. Any comments and any help you can, or ideas you can give me about how we can work with people to get something started would be so appreciated.
Sure.
I'd like to just kind of update the board. Thank you, Ms. Bernard, for coming on today. I appreciate seeing you as well. And the residents of Little Noyak Path are concerned about a number of issues that Andrea outlined quite well. As far as the water main or possible water main, I spoke to Trustee Welker, and she is in communication with the Suffolk County Water Authority, specifically Lisa Setta over there, about what it would take to get a water main extension going. So that is underway. At least those communications are there. It's further complicated with the fact that it is a trustee road, and so she is working on that. And there are a number of trees in this area that are infested with the southern pine beetle, and we're seeing a die-off in this area. I've alerted our CPF as well as our chief environmental analyst on this. Like many places in the town and other towns on Long Island, this is happening. One of the safety concerns are the dead trees along the side of the road. I called the trustee's office, made them aware of this, and they're working on getting those trees down. In that time, we actually had a tree fall down over the road. So it's dangerous, and they are getting an estimate on getting those trees taken down so that it'll be less of a hazard there. I think an overarching theme with the trustees, what the trustees were saying to you, they were essentially asking for more funding to help maintain those roads. That's really, I will say it, the roads, for whoever designed the schematic or the funding scheme for putting houses up on the roads, it's not a reoccurring funding scheme with the trustees, so they're having difficulty maintaining these roads. So that's what Ms. Bernard is asking us to address as well, along with the trustees.
Okay, just in the interest of time, and I would have no problem attending one of these meetings. I think, meeting with the trustees and the property owners and Councilman Scavone and trying to come up with a plan as to how to get these roads either improved to highway standards and brought into the system, the town system, or maybe maintained more rurally through a different program could be acceptable. So, we can continue that conversation. I know our next speaker is running out of time. So I want to.
Is there any kind of date we could shoot for a meeting? We've been asking people for about 2 months, and people tell me, so-and-so has talked to so-and-so, and I don't know how to get those people to talk to each other.
Andrea, if you want to give a call to my office, the town attorney's office, it's Jim Burke talking, and you can.
Thank you so much, because we have had Sean Cambridge involved because of this liability issue. Yeah. So Tom, I'm sorry, John Burke.
Sure, Sean works for me. My name is Jim Burke.
Jim Burke, sorry. Yeah. Thank you, Jim.
You can call 631-287-3065 and
287.
We'll arrange to have a meeting.
Sorry, is it the last digits?
I'm sorry, 3065?
3065. Thank you so much. I will call you tomorrow because I see you have a lot of business after this. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Lorraine, I know you only have 4 minutes left, or 3 minutes now left, so let's see if we can get you on here.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Lorraine Pacelio. I live at 23 Nash Avenue, Flanders, and I serve on the Code Committee of the Bayview Pines Civic and Taxpayers Association. This is a follow-up of my prior appearance before you regarding the illegal Tochi sign on Route 24. Mr. Schneiderman, you had said you would work with the family, but we have not seen any results or heard of any changes coming. As you know, the judge dismissed the code violation because the Tochi family added another 5 or 10 inches to the sign, adding a quote from the Bible that says, "He heals the brokenhearted and binds up their wounds." The court ruled this quote makes the sign exempt from the sign code based on the freedom of religion. That's what we were told. Does this mean all signs will be exempt from the town code if you merely add a religious quote to the bottom? Will this case be appealed, or is the town of Southampton to become a town of signs with religious statements added to the bottom, just so they don't have to follow the town code? I note the religious quote was only there are 2 billboard-sized signs. Will another religious quote be added to the other sign, or will a violation be issued? The bottom line is, will the town enforce the sign code in the Flanders area or not? Additionally, we have asked to sit down and meet with Jim Burke and Rick Martell together or separately regarding the ongoing communication, or shall I say non-communication, with legal issues in our following up on other pending alleged code violations in the Flanders area and specifically in the Bayview Pines neighborhood. We need a sit-down meeting because code enforcement has refused to update us on any of the issues we have been working on for many, many months, and some we have been working on for years. In response to our requests for updates, Mr. Ryan Murphy told us to foil it. This is unacceptable. We need to be able to communicate and follow up on complaints our organization has made so we can provide answers to our members and area citizens. We have repeatedly requested a meeting. Sorry. We have repeatedly requested a meeting, and although we've been told, yes, we will work with you, no meeting has been set up yet. At one point, in response to our request for a meeting, we were told to work with Franca. We do work with Franca on many issues. However, Bayview Pines often has different issues that relate only to our community, and Franca is not my elected representative. We have issues in our neighborhood. We have a right to meet with our elected representatives, and we are requesting again that Mr. Burke and Mr. Martell advise my organization exactly when they are available. Thank you for your time.
Right. Thank you, Lorraine. And I did speak with the property owner. Not since I said that I spoke with the property owner, but I will go back and speak with her again because she did indicate to me that she did not intend to keep these signs there indefinitely and would remove the signs. And we were going to look for another possible way of memorializing her sister and others who died due to irresponsible driving. And I just need to follow it up with a call. So
appreciate that.
We will reach out. I will reach out to you as well, Lorraine. I know that you met with Ryan and Sean Cambridge from my office within the last month or two, but we will also, I'll reach out to you. We can meet, over by you, or we could meet in Hampton Bays or my office here, whatever.
Okay, I would appreciate that also.
Sure,
Thank
okay.
you.
All right.
And Lorraine, if you could, I've asked several times, if we can get an agenda or a list of your concerns, just so I know we're
To
speaking
tell you the
about.
truth, Mr. Martell, we've put the list together several times, and we really don't want it privy to foil by neighborhood people who's making the complaints. So that's why we have to sit down and speak about it. We make the complaints and we need to follow up on them. I don't want to continuously put things in writing because then the people that want to know, hey, who complained about me? They get our name and our organization, and it causes problems
Sure.
in the neighborhood.
No, I
So-
understand that, but you could very well have a meeting with Jim and I, and we will simply have to say, I'll get back to you on every single issue. I'd rather be able to
That's
look
fine.
into it.
That's fine.
Well, I'll reach out with you, Lorraine, and certainly
You
I
can
can
check
have.
with Mr. Murphy. He has our list.
Yeah, I can have Ryan, I can make Ryan available and Sean and whoever you need.
Okay,
And
great.
then if
I'll be
there's any
glad to
issues, I
set
can
up an,
report.
okay, and
If
I'll be
there's any
glad
issues, I can
to,
report back to Councilman on that.
okay, thank you. Have a good
Thanks,
day.
Jim.
All right,
Thank you.
thanks, Larry.
Thank you.
Okay, Charles, anyone else who wishes to be heard in public portion?
No one else said.
All right, if you wish to be heard in public portion, you have to click the raise hand icon.
No one else left.
I should just get a tape of you, Charlie, going, raise hand. You said it so many times when we were in that, that loop.
Maybe we can have him play a little saxophone too while he's at it.
That's a good idea, Jim.
We'll have to get a recording of that little segment. All right, all
I'll have
right.
it for you this week.
Thanks. All right, I'll make a motion to close public portion.
Second.
Second.
Thanks. Second by Councilwoman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
I think it was actually no hand. I see, what was it he kept saying? I don't know.
I see no hand.
I see
No hand.
no hands.
See no evil.
All right.
It's a voice from God.
It was interesting. All right, so let's move on now to resolutions. We've been at this since 4:30 now. We've been here since what, 1 o'clock? So we're 4.5 hours in. All right. So we're going to read the resolutions and vote on them. We're going to start with 947 being offered by Councilman Schiavone.
Thank you, Supervisor. Town Board Resolution 947 of 2021. This is authorized information technology to purchase Microsoft licenses. Excuse me.
second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
approved.
Town Board Resolution 948 of 2021, authorized purchases of heavy construction equipment with related accessories, attachments, and supplies from Komatsu America using the Sourcewell contract.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 949 of 2021 authorizes supervisor to enter into an agreement with CCSI and RDS Upgrade. Can I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Town Board Resolution 950 of 2021, and this is to authorize the supervisor to enter into an agreement with CCSI for wireless network upgrade.
Second again.
Same second. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 951 of 2021 authorizes supervisor to enter into an agreement with CCSI for email upgrade.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 952 of 2021 authorizes supervisor to sign purchase order with Harris Govern.
Second.
Second.
You guys are gonna have to second quicker than that. Councilwoman Lofstad, seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 953 of 2021, authorized the supervisor to sign consulting contract with H2M Architects Engineers, Land Surveying et al. For subaqueous water pipe crossing at Ponquag Bridge and Shinnecock Canal.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 2021-954, authorize the supervisor to execute an agreement with Briscoe Protective LLC for semi-annual inspections at the Hampton Bays Town Annex.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 955 of 2021, authorized the supervisor to sign a contract for line dancing lessons and performance at Good Ground Park.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Schiavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 956 of 2021, authorized the supervisor to sign a contract for Magic Performance at Good Ground Park.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Town Board Resolution 2021-957, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, board and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract for habitat restoration and cleanup at 517 Montauk Highway, Shinnecock Hills with Brian V. Klug Landscaper Incorporated.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 958 of 2021, award and authorize supervisor to sign a contract with Construction Consultants LI Incorporated for Shinnecock Canal Maritime Park.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-959 is co-sponsored with the entire board. So award and authorize the supervisor to sign a contract with Kearsarge Energy Limited Partnership for the community solar installation at the North Sea landfill.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. Just on the motion, John, I just wanted to thank a few people, or you can, that were involved with this. Our former town engineer, Christine Fenton, Frank in my office, Frank Zappone was very involved as well, and anyone else you want to mention.
Well, our entire sustainability committee, Lynn Arthur in particular, who works tirelessly to drive these things towards satisfaction, and also our help from our esteemed assemblyman, Fred Thiel, whose legislations helped us bring this to this point. So very much appreciated. Thank you, Supervisor, and yourself as well, Jay. You know, everybody's been part of this. Looking forward to this pilot working and see how.
This is a major solar installation in the town of Southampton.
Yeah, it's the first community solar done here under CDG, under the CCA program.
Without cutting down any trees.
Without cutting down trees, absolutely. Thank you, Councilwoman Lobstadt.
Lastly, John, thank you for all your work on this. I know you've worked very hard to get us to this point, so.
Thank you, Supervisor.
All right, so I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-960, declare October 21 Bullying Prevention and Awareness Month in the town of Southampton, and authorize the supervisor to execute a contract with the Anti-Defamation League to provide anti-bias training.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 961 of 2021 amends the 2021 adopted budget for the Highway Department.
Second.
Second by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 2021-962 amends 2021 budget for various departments.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
I approve. 963 of 2021 amends the 21 through 25 capital budget for 271 Flanders Road building renovations.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. This is the Head Start building.
And see me.
And see me? I
Yeah.
see you, yes.
It's a Head Start building, but we're bringing in CME and making the necessary modifications in order to make that happen.
Yeah,
Yeah, this has been a long time in the making. It's exciting to finally get to vote on it. So thank you, Councilman.
right. This is, I think, the first phase. Yes. All right. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
I approve. 2021-964, co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier, amends the 21 through 25 capital budget for waste management HBTS attendant booth.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
I approve. 2021-965, amend and close the 2021 through 25 capital project Reeves Bay.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 2021-966, authorized closure of capital project.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Downward Resolution 2021-967 is to appoint Elena Rivera Williams to the Anti-Bias Task Force.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Downward Resolution 2021-968 is to appoint Geraldine Fisher to the Anti-Bias Task Force.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved.
Town Board Resolution 2021-969, appoint Eva DeVito to the North Sea CAC.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 2021-970, co-sponsored with Councilman Scavone, is a resolution of adoption to enact the Town of Southampton Heat Emergency Plan.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. I just wanted to thank Ryan Murphy for his work in putting that together. That was approved. 971 of 2021, authorized Community Preservation Fund tax refund pursuant to the first-time homebuyers exemption for Allison Skopov.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 2021-972, authorized Community Preservation Fund tax refund pursuant to the first-time homebuyers exemption for Amy Anderson.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Resolution 2021-973. Authorized Community Preservation Fund tax refund pursuant to the first-time homebuyers exemption for Gerber Garcia and Sandra R. Sanchez Gomez.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Approved. 2021-974, authorized Community Preservation Fund refund pursuant to the first-time home buyers exemption for Jamie Gomez Moroto.
Second.
Seconded by, who's that, Councilman Martell?
Yes, sir.
By Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Uh, 2021-975 accepts resignation of a guard in public safety.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 2021-976 appoints Gustavo Putsulu to guard position in public safety.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. 2021-977 accepts retirement of Melissa Benjamin, police detective in the police department.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. Just on the motion, thank you to Melissa, Detective Benjamin, for your service to the town of Southampton, and we wish you all the very best in your retirement. All right, anyone else on that? If not, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, approved. All right, 978 of 2021 appoints Paul Gubista to maintenance mechanic 1 position in parks.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Olivier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved, and congratulations to Paul. 2021-979 appoints Stefan Garcia to Justice Court Clerk, Spanish-speaking position in Justice Court.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved, and congratulations to Stefan. 980 of 2021, authorized town personnel from town police to attend training in Lacona, New Hampshire. There's a little mistake in the title, but it says to attending. That's okay. To attend training in Lacona, New Hampshire. Do I have a
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Aye.
981 of 2021, authorize town personnel from the town police department to attend special event safety seminar.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. 982, 2021 extends probationary period for a public safety dispatcher 3.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Martell. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 983 of 2021 extends probationary period for public safety dispatcher 2.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. All right. I need to do a substitution on the next one. So if next on the schedule is 2021-984, there's a substitution doc ID 38546. This is a notice of public hearing to consider the construction of a new ambulance facility in the Southampton Ambulance District pursuant to Town Law Section 202B. So I'll make a motion to substitute doc ID 38546 for
Second.
resolution 2021-984, seconded by, was that Councilman Bouvier?
Yes.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. All right. I will now make a motion to approve doc ID 38546. Notice of public hearing to consider the construction of a new ambulance facility in the Southampton Ambulance District pursuant to Town Law Section 202B.
Second.
Second, just on the motion, so, you know, the numbers, you know, not surprisingly, because construction is coming in quite high. The numbers have come in a little higher for this ambulance barn than were initially anticipated, so this does increase the borrowing amount, should we move forward. So it was originally conceived of as a $3.5 million project. It's now getting closer to 5.5, but there are other monies coming into this, so I don't think all that will have to be borrowed. But it's not an expansion of the plan, though it does include some of the furniture, furnishings and things like that necessary to finish out the project, as well as, you know, they are transferring the old barn to us and the land, which we'll be able to surplus and sell or put to another purpose. But we have to hold a public hearing on it. It's an increase in the amount, and that's what this does. So.
And we did address we did a comparison between this ambulance district and some of the other ambulance districts and their the area of coverage as well as their response time as well. And we'll review that, of course, in all the public hearings. This is a necessity.
It's really needed and will help us attract volunteers and provide a high level of service. I wish it wasn't as expensive as it is.
Right.
But that is what ambulance barns are costing. So I've looked at some of the other ones and this is not out of line. I just had hoped that it would be less.
And as it says in here, it's the increase in construction costs due to COVID issues, unfortunately.
Yep.
And I'll just make the point that we have other capital projects that may suffer from some of the same cost increase.
Yep. You know.
And it should be noted also that contractors are adding travel time into their cost estimates out here.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. That was the substituted resolution. Oh, that hearing will be November 9th at 1 p.m. And we've made provisions, I believe, yeah, we're going to do it via Zoom. I think we're probably going to end up at least through the end of November continuing with Zoom. The numbers are getting better. They're definitely improving. So hopefully we'll be able to come back. We'll still have this issue about accessibility though. So we need to try to get the auditorium until the elevator's done. So 2021 of 985 is a resolution to coordinate lead agency for the purpose of secret in connection with NRP Group's change of zone application entitled The Preserve at South Country Road for a change from CR 40 to multifamily plan residential district, MFPRD, on a 17-acre parcel in order to facilitate development of 104 units, 6 units per acre of affordable rental housing in the hamlet of Quiot.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are going on to the walk-ons, I'm sorry. There are 38549 is warrant number 19, capital CPF and payroll liability.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, approved. 38563. Amends resolution number 2021-755, establishing a traffic solutions task force and appointing task force members.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Councilman Schiavone. This is adding a representative from the Southampton Village Police Department. So they're sort of critical in that, you know, we know that there's a major backdrop on village roads as well, Hill Street. You know, solving some of these traffic issues without understanding that, you know, Montauk Highway is sort of running straight through Southampton Village. We need to have them at the table when we try to come up with some of these blinking light solutions, et cetera, roundabout solutions. So it's a good suggestion. We have somebody who wants to serve, so this will add them on. So we had a motion, a second, all in favor?
Aye.
And I do believe we have a meeting coming up soon, the first meeting of this committee. So that was approved. 38567, it's a notice of public hearing to consider the sale of 406 Mill Road, West Hampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Just on the motion, this is that property that is next to the 7-Eleven on Mill Road, next. right?
Yep.
What was
Yep.
that, old post office, what was it, or?
Well, it was a community center at one point, and then it was demolished because of asbestos and other reasons. And
It was the original American Legion building. It's
American Legion, thank you, Sunday. I was struggling there.
That's okay. It's a long time ago now.
The post office is still there. There's a 7-Eleven.
Post office is next door.
Oh, post office is next to it. All right, that's,
Yeah.
I knew something was related to the post office.
Yes.
Post office. And we have,
Otherwise, I've been going to the wrong building for quite a while.
and we have,
Go to all your mail.
we have a buyer for it. So, right, Jim?
Yes, this time around, we did get multiple bids and
401,002, 401,201.
yes.
And that was the high bid. Okay. And that ultimately is helping pay for the new community center.
That's correct. Well, part of it.
Yeah.
Looking forward to playing Mahjong there.
Oh, yeah. All right, so we have motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved. Jim, thank you for your handling of that. All right, so that's the last resolution. This meeting is almost 4 hours long, so is there any other business? All right, I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Maloney.